Emissary Zhang hesitated for a moment and said, "The young master has gone to the medium world." Qing Qiu nodded. "I'll go with him." Emissary Zhang smiled bitterly. "There are experts above the supreme deity level in the middle world. I think," Qing Qiu suddenly asked, "are the masters above the supreme deity very powerful?" Emissary Zhang was stunned. "Isn't this powerful?" Qing Qiu shook his head with a smile. "Anyone in this realm is nothing but an ant." As she spoke, she paused for a moment and said, "Except for my brother." Emissary Zhang. "Qingzhou." Inside the palace, Tuoba Yen looked at Yi Xian. "Are you leaving?" Yi Xian nodded. "I'm going to do something." After a moment of silence, Tuoba Yen said, "When are you coming back?" Yi Xian smiled. "The Qingxian sword is in my hands. I can come back at any time." Tuoba Yen suddenly kissed Yi Xian and said softly, "I'll wait for you." Yi Xian's lips suddenly curled up, and his smile was somewhat devilish. As if sensing some changes in Yi Xian, Tuoba Yen blushed slightly. "You," Yi Xian laughed, and the two disappeared on the spot at the same time. At the same time, Daoist and Xiaota flew out of the palace. Xiaota, Daoist. A few days later, Yi Xian left the palace. When Yi Xian returned to the great celestial realm, many experts from the Immortal Treasure Pavilion had gathered there. Emissary Zhang came before Yi Xian and said respectfully, "Greetings, young master." Yi Xian said, "How many great godly realm experts do we have now?" Emissary Zhang said in a deep voice, "Including the great celestial realm experts, there are a total of 26. 26. Yi Xian looked at Emissary Zhang. "How does it compare to the middle world?" Emissary Zhang hesitated and said, "The difference is too big. The middle world has at least 50 great godly realm experts. Apart from that, they can also mobilize great godly realm experts from other worlds. It can be said that a middle world universe deity can mobilize at least a few hundred great godly realm experts in a very short time." Yi Xian nodded. "Understood." Emissary Zhang wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Xian smiled. "Don't be afraid." Emissary Zhang shook his head. "I'm not afraid. I'm angry. Young master, how dare they send people to kill you? They are just workers for the Yang clan. How dare they send people to kill you?" "I'm angry." Yi Xian laughed. "I'm angry too. So, kill them." Emissary Zhang said in a deep voice, "Kill them. Kill them all." Yi Xian smiled and then looked at Qing Qiu. "Girl," Qing Qiu suddenly said, "I'll go with you." Yi Xian hesitated. "We still need you here," Qing Qiu interrupted Yi Xian. "I'll go with you." Very determined. Yi Xian thought for a while and then nodded. But hearing this, Qing Qiu suddenly smiled sweetly. Yi Xian suddenly looked at Qing Qiu and then smiled. "You are at the divine transformation realm?" Qing Qiu nodded. But Yi Xian laughed. "I'm finally a little higher than you." Pa. Qing Qiu suddenly snapped her fingers. Boom. In an instant, Qing Qiu's aura suddenly skyrocketed from the divine transformation realm to the high god realm. Yi Xian's smile froze. 10,000 horses were galloping in his heart. On the side, Emissary Zhang was also petrified. He suddenly felt a little suffocated. Cultivation? Damn it. Look at her. She didn't even need to cultivate. She broke through directly. The more Emissary Zhang thought about it, the angrier he got. His heart couldn't take it. Qing Qiu blinked. "Brother, what's wrong?" Yi Xian hesitated and then said, "Broke through just like that?" Qing Qiu nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "You don't need the time vein? You don't need to comprehend it?" Qing Qiu was a little confused. "Isn't it a simple thing to break through? What do you need it for?" Yi Xian, Emissary Zhang's expression was stiff like a statue. Yi Xian still couldn't understand. "Girl, why did you break through so easily? It's not normal." Qing Qiu thought for a while and then said, "I might be a genius." Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. "You mean we are too stupid?" Qing Qiu smiled. "I am not stupid." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "Then tell me, why did you break through with a snap of your fingers?" Qing Qiu was silent. Yi Xian said softly, "Can't you tell me?" Xianxia shook her head. "I'm thinking about how to fool you." Yi Xian, Xianxia suddenly smiled. "Brother, a long time ago I was very, very powerful. The invincible kind." Yi Xian was silent for a while and then said, "I understand." Xianxia smiled. "Anyway, in my heart, brother is the most powerful." Yi Xian gently rubbed Xianxia's little head and then said with a smile, "Let's go and fight with brother." The corners of Xianxia's mouth lifted slightly. "All right." Yi Xian directly led everyone to the middle world. On the way, Lan Qing, the branch president of Immortal Treasure Pavilion, gathered a group of branch presidents. He looked at everyone and then said in a deep voice, "Everyone, this time we are going to target the middle world, and behind the middle world is the Yang clan. Do you know?" Everyone nodded and looked a little dignified. Not to mention the Yang clan behind them, even a middle world is not easy to deal with. One must know that the universe gods of the middle world can mobilize the experts of other worlds. Once hundreds of upper god realm experts are mobilized, at that time, they will be completely useless. Lan Qing said in a deep voice. "Of course, we don't need to be afraid. Because young Master Yi is the young master of the Yang clan, they will not dare to kill young Master Yi. However, they will definitely dare to kill us, so this time we will go with young Master Yi, we must." At this moment, Yi Xian's voice suddenly sounded, "President Lan Qing, don't worry, I will not let you become cannon fodder." Lan Qing turned around and looked. Not far away, Yi Xian slowly walked over. Seeing Yi Xian, Lan Qing smiled bitterly. "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian smiled. "Don't worry, when we arrive in the middle world, I will not let you become cannon fodder." Lan Qing nodded. "I believe in young Master Yi's character, but young Master Yi, have you ever thought that since they dare to send people to kill you, it proves that they have decided to shed all pretense of cordiality with you?" Speaking of this, he paused and said, "Can you contact the Yang clan's higher-ups?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "No need to contact me." Lan Qing was stunned. Yi Xian chuckled. "Why do you want to contact the Yang clan?" Lan Qing was silent. Yi Xian raised his head and looked into the depths of the distant starry sky, his eyes gradually turning cold. Middle world. The matter of Yi Xian and the others rushing to the middle world was already known by the middle world. Inside a great hall, the powerhouses of the middle world had already gathered. Everyone's expression was a bit ugly. Yi Xian. They didn't expect that Yi Xian would really come to the middle world. Most importantly, the middle world had sent someone to pass an order to the middle world. When he, Yi Xian, came to the middle world, if the powerhouses of the middle world didn't kneel in front of him, then he, Yi Xian, would slaughter the entire clan. Slaughter the entire clan. One has to say, everyone was still very angry. Although they were nothing in the Yang clan, in this universe, they were the top group of people. When had they ever been humiliated like this? At this time, Si Juanjia suddenly appeared in the hall. Seeing Si Juanjia, everyone hurriedly saluted. Si Juanjia's expression was calm. "I heard that the young master is coming. What do you think?" Everyone fell silent. Si Juanjia spoke indifferently. "Immediately send the order to seal off the middle world and all the space-time that leads to the outside universe. No news can leave the middle world. Besides that, immediately send the order to the realm lords of the various worlds to rush over here within 2 hours." Everyone was slightly stunned. "Why would I send the realm lords here?" Meanwhile, Si Juanjia continued, "Just say that someone is pretending to be the young master." Pretending to be the young master. Everyone in the hall instantly came to an understanding. Chapter 2397. Impersonating the Young Master. There had to be a reasonable reason to deal with Yi Xian. Impersonating the young master was undoubtedly the best reason. After all, the sword master had never personally acknowledged Yi Xian in the Yang clan. Under such circumstances, they could completely refuse to acknowledge Yi Xian's identity. After killing Yi Xian, they could just find a random reason to push it onto someone else. Wouldn't that be the end of it? Of course, there were still some people who were worried. After all, they were killing the young master. Not some nobody. An old man walked out and said solemnly, "See, Xianxia, we didn't know about the sword master's attitude towards the young master." Hearing this, everyone's expressions became solemn again. What position did Yi Xian occupy in the sword master's heart? If the young master was very important in the sword master's heart, wouldn't they be finished? Si Xianxia said indifferently, "We've already investigated. Yi Xian is just an illegitimate child. Isn't it normal for the sword master to have thousands of children?" Everyone, Si Xianxia continued, think about it. If Yi Xian really held some weight in the sword master's heart, would the sword master have ignored him for so many years? Would he have left him alone? Would he have never mentioned him in the Yang clan? Everyone fell silent. They had to admit that Si Xianxia's words made sense, because they realized that the sword master really had never mentioned Yi Xian in the Yang clan. Seeing everyone's expressions, Si Xianxia continued, "Of course, if you have any concerns, it's easy. When he comes, all of you can kneel in front of the city gates and beg for his forgiveness. Wouldn't that be the end of it?" After saying this, he sneered. Hearing this, everyone's expressions became ugly. Kneel in front of the city gates and beg for forgiveness? They definitely couldn't do that. Si Xianxia continued, "Did you all see what happened to the Great Heaven Domain's lord? After Yi Xian took over the Great Heaven Domain, he immediately occupied it and even wanted to set up an academy. Are you all willing to give up your power?" At this moment, an old man suddenly said fiercely, "This person pretended to be the Yang clan's young master. He should be killed. Kill him." Everyone in the hall echoed in agreement. Submitting to Yi Xian would mean giving up their rights. This was something they were unwilling to do. Seeing everyone agree, Si Xianxia nodded slightly as a smile appeared in his eyes. Although this person is really the son of the sword master has never appeared in the Yang clan. Moreover, who doesn't know that the next patriarch of the Yang clan is the eldest young lady? If we kill this Yi Xian, even if the higher-ups blame us, eldest miss will protect us. Young miss. The expressions of everyone instantly eased up greatly when they heard Si Xianxia. With the protection of the eldest miss, the pressure on them was greatly relieved. After all, the eldest miss, Yang Nianshue's prestige in the clan was very high. After all, the eldest miss was the biological daughter of matriarch Su. Si Xianxia raised his head and looked outside the hall, his expression icy cold. He's just an illegitimate child. Why should we fear him? Everyone in the hall nodded. In a corner, a middle-aged man quietly retreated. This middle-aged man was also a world lord, and his name was Ji. After the middle-aged man retreated, his entire being was filled with terror. He felt that things weren't that simple. Illegitimate child? Even if he was an illegitimate child, he wasn't someone they could kill indiscriminately. Moreover, according to his investigation, this Yi Xian had the crazy demon bloodline. In other words, Yi Xian had awakened the crazy demon bloodline of the sword master, but this eldest miss hadn't. Ji looked around and then opened his palm. A voice transmission talisman turned into a flame and disappeared quietly. He felt that this matter wasn't reliable, so he had to inform the higher-ups. Killing the young master, to a certain extent, was already a rebellion. If one's strength was strong enough, it wasn't impossible to rebel. However, the problem was that in front of the entire Yang clan, they weren't even considered as ants. How could they rebel? It was like a village saying that they wanted to rebel. Wasn't this courting death? Ji looked at the distant starry sky, his eyes filled with worry. After Si Xianxia left the hall, he came to the front of the bamboo house. Si Xianxia slightly bowed. "World God." A moment later, a voice came from the bamboo house. "He's coming." Si Xianxia nodded. "At most an hour." World God was silent. Si Xianxia wanted to say something but stopped. In fact, he was a little worried. After all, he was the young master. Even if he was an illegitimate child, he wasn't someone they could kill at will. At this moment, that world god suddenly said, "Worried?" Si Xianxia nodded. World god calmly said, "After killing him, say that someone else killed him. Then isn't it settled?" Si Xianxia was silent. Damn it. Were the higher-ups of the Yang clan so easy to fool? In fact, what he was most worried about was that until now, this world god hadn't shown up. Once they killed Yi Xian, this world god would push all the blame onto him and make him the scapegoat. Wouldn't that be the end of him? As if seeing Si Juanzhe's worry, that world god suddenly said, "Don't worry, if there isn't an order from the higher-ups, how would I dare to kill Yi Xian?" An order from the higher-ups. Hearing this, Si Juanzhe's expression changed. The higher-ups? Eldest Miss? World god was silent for a moment, then said, "Of course." Hearing this, Si Juanzhe's expression instantly relaxed. "So it's Eldest Miss's order? If it's Eldest Miss's order, then it's easy." World god said, "Go." Si Juanzhe bowed slightly, "Understood." Then he retreated. In the bamboo house, a middle-aged man suddenly stood up. This person was the Middle World Universe god. When the middle-aged man stood up, a shadow suddenly appeared not far away from him. Seeing this shadow, World God immediately bowed slightly, "Lord." The shadow was expressionless. The higher-up's order is simple, don't let that person live. World God was silent for a moment, then said, "Lord, he is the young master after all. Is it really okay to kill him?" Actually, he was also fearful. After all, he wasn't an idiot. However, he was also gambling. If he wanted to climb up, he could only please the higher-ups. Hence, he had to cooperate with the higher-ups. Lord said calmly, "What are you worried about?" World God was silent. "Don't you know what I'm worried about?" Lord chuckled. "Are you afraid that we will sacrifice you in the end and make you the scapegoat?" World God didn't speak. Lord said calmly, "Don't worry, the one who wants him dead is Eldest Mississippi. With Eldest Miss's protection, what are you afraid of?" Eldest Miss. Hearing this, World God's expression instantly relaxed. As long as it was Eldest Miss's order, then he wasn't afraid. Anyway, Eldest Miss would take care of everything. If not for Eldest Miss, he really wouldn't dare to kill Yi Xian. Yi Xian was easy to kill, but what would happen after he was killed? After all, he was the young master. After killing Yi Xian, someone had to take the blame. In other words, someone had to be the scapegoat. He was also afraid of being the scapegoat. Then Lord said again, "Kill him, then you can leave the middle world and enter the Xian Pavilion." Xian Pavilion. Hearing this, World God's pupils suddenly shrank and his entire body trembled. Xian Pavilion, that was the place that he had dreamed of entering, but he had never dared to think about it. To enter that place, it was really difficult. As long as he entered that place, he could barely be considered to have come into contact with the real Yang clan. Now, they could barely be considered as the outer circle. But now, as long as he killed Yi Xian, he could enter that place. Meanwhile, the Lord said, "This is your only chance. Just wait and see." Then, his body gradually became illusory. World God bowed slightly, "Goodbye, Lord." When Lord disappeared completely, World God kept quiet for a while and then turned to leave. He had made his decision. In an unknown starry sky, an elder suddenly appeared in the starry sky. The person who came was Lord. Lord looked at the starry sky far away and bowed slightly, "You unsure?" After a while, a voice was heard from the starry sky, "Are you done?" Lord nodded, "Yes, I am." Then he wanted to say something but stopped. Yuan Shi said faintly, "Are you worried?" Lord nodded quickly, "Yes." Yuan Shi, he is the young master after all. Will there be a problem if we kill him? Yuan Shi kept quiet for a while and chuckled, "Problem? What problem could there be? Do you know that this is Eldest Miss's order?" Eldest Miss's order. Lord was stunned at first, then he was overjoyed. "Yuan Shi, is it really Eldest Miss's order?" Yuan Shi said calmly, "Of course. Do you think I will lie to you? Without Eldest Miss's order, how would I dare to let you kill him?" Lord nodded quickly, "Yes, yes. I guess it's Eldest Miss's order too." Yuan Shi nodded, "It's Eldest Miss's order. Eldest Miss has been unhappy with him for a long time. So, go ahead and do it. Don't feel burdened." Lord bowed slightly, "I understand." Yuan Shi said, "Remember, you must eliminate the root of the problem. Don't leave any future trouble. If necessary, you can do it yourself." Lord nodded. I understand. I understand. Yuanshi said, I wish you success. Then he disappeared completely. Lord kept quiet for a while before he turned and left. On a certain unknown mountain peak, a woman stood quietly. That person was Yang Xianxia. At that moment, Yang Xianxia's aura was as deep as the vast starry sky. It was obvious that her realm had reached upper god realm. Not far behind Yang Xianxia was an old man. The old man wore a black robe and held a sword in his hand. After a long time, Yang Xianxia suddenly opened her eyes. She took a deep breath and smiled. I broke through. Behind her, the old man bowed respectfully. Congratulations, young miss. Yang Xianxia stretched and smiled. I wonder how my little brother is doing. The old man said, Young master should be doing well too. Yang Xianxia nodded. Although my little brother is a little flashy, he's very talented. As she spoke, she seemed to have thought of something and turned to look at the old man. Uncle Lu, help me investigate and see how my little brother is doing. If necessary, help him. After all, I only have this little brother and my father is letting him live. As his sister, I have to take good care of him, lest he gets beaten to death. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Actually, without the monthly vote, I'm quite miserable. 7017K. Chapter 2398. The Middle World. When Yi Xian and the others arrived at the Middle World was already on standby. The city gates were closed tightly, and the entire city was unusually quiet. Moreover, countless formidable auras were concealed within the city. At the city gates, Emissary Zhang gazed vigilantly at the nearby city, and he spoke in a low voice, Young master, something isn't right. Yi Xian smiled, What's wrong? Emissary Zhang glanced at the surroundings and said, They want to kill you, young master. When he spoke up to this point, his gaze instantly turned icy cold. How audacious of them! He hadn't expected that they would actually dare to act against Yi Xian. This wasn't just insubordination, it was blatant rebellion. Have they gone mad? They actually dare to act against the young master. Qing Qiu, who stood by Yi Xian's side, glanced at the city with a calm expression, and no one knew what he was thinking. On the other hand, the expressions of Lan Qing and the others had become solemn. Obviously, the middle world was going to fight. Of course, they were shocked because the middle world obviously wanted to kill Yi Xian as well. All of them glanced at each other and were extremely shocked. Has the middle world gone mad? They even dared to kill their young master. How audacious are they? Suddenly, a middle-aged man appeared on the city walls. This middle-aged man was Si Juanjia. Si Juanjia gazed at Yi Xian in the distance with a calm expression. Who are you? Who are you? Yi Xian started laughing when he heard this. Looks like all of you intend to say that I'm an imposter. Si Juanjia stared at Yi Xian with an expressionless face. Isn't that the case? As he spoke, he took 2 steps forward and looked Yi Xian in the eye as he shouted furiously, Imposter of my Yang clan, you deserve death. As soon as he finished speaking, hundreds of terrifying auras suddenly enveloped Yi Xian. All of them were at the high god realm. How dare you? Suddenly, Emissary Zhang shouted furiously, Have all of you eaten a bear's heart or a leopard's gall? You actually dared to kill the young master. All of you. Si Juanjia was expressionless. As soon as he finished speaking, hundreds of people suddenly shot up into the sky from the city. At this moment, Yi Xian opened his palm. Boom! In an instant, a terrifying bloodline aura soared into the sky from his body. In an instant, the entire sky turned into a sea of blood. Crazed demon bloodline. When they saw the berserk demon bloodline, the expressions of the hundreds of experts instantly changed, and they all stopped. Si Juanjia's expression changed when he saw Yi Xian's mad demon bloodline. Yi Xian laughed and said, Fake? Say that again? Si Juanjia stared fixedly at Yi Xian with an extremely unsightly expression. Yi Xian was about to speak when Si Juanjia suddenly shouted fiercely, Kill! As soon as he finished speaking, dozens of death warriors from the middle world charged towards Yi Xian. Si Juanjia understood very well that he couldn't waste his breath. The more he spoke, the more hesitant the people on his side would be, and then he would attack decisively and leave no way out for them. At the instant they saw those experts from the middle world attack, the experts from the other worlds hesitated for a moment before they charged out as well. There was no way out. They could only fight. Emissary Zhang's expression changed drastically when he saw the experts from the middle world attack directly. He had never imagined that the experts from the middle world would actually dare to kill Yi Xian in broad daylight. This wasn't as simple as a rebellion. When he saw the experts from the middle world attack directly, the smile on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth gradually became ferocious. Suddenly he vanished on the spot, and the azure profound sword was unsheathed. Bang! A wave of sword light suddenly erupted in the sky. In an instant, the head of the leading high god state expert flew into the air, and the sword continued forward and killed a few more high god state experts. Si Juanji's expression changed drastically when he saw that Yi Xian had killed several high god state experts in an instant. You've become a high god. According to the previous information, Yi Xian was in the divine transformation realm, but now, Yi Xian had actually become a high god. The sudden turn of events caught them off guard. Si Juanji charged out, and as soon as he arrived in front of Yi Xian slashed down with his sword. A blood-red wave of sword light slashed down in a straight line. Si Juanji's pupils constricted abruptly when he sensed the terrifying energy within Yi Xian's sword. At this moment, he didn't dare be careless in the slightest, and he flipped his palm before suddenly lifting it up. With this lift, countless layers of space were suddenly lifted up while strands of terrifying energy poured out and shook the myriad of worlds in the universe. Rumble! An expanse of sword light was blasted apart. Both Yi Xian and Si Juanji were blasted back at the same time, and both of them moved over 30 kilometers back. At the same time, the formidable force that erupted from them pushed back countless experts in the surroundings. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically, and they retreated explosively. Xianxia gazed at the surroundings with a calm expression. A strand of sword light had silently appeared on the tip of her finger. Si Juanji gazed at Yi Xian who stood nearby, and there was a solemn expression in his eyes. His hand had split open, and his entire palm was dyed red with blood. Yi Xian's strength had far exceeded his expectations. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly closed his eyes slowly. Si Juanji's eyes narrowed slightly when he witnessed this scene, and then he slowly clenched his right hand that was dyed red with blood. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly attacked. The space in front of Yi Xian suddenly split apart, and then Yi Xian appeared within the universe. After that, the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand vanished. Instant of invincibility. At the moment that Yi Xian attacked, Si Juanji's pupils constricted, and he was astounded to the extreme. The aura of death. This time, he sensed the aura of death. Si Juanji was horrified, but he didn't choose to wait for death to descend upon him. He clenched his fists tightly, roared furiously, and then smashed his fist forward. This attack caused countless strands of the energy of faith to surge out like a wave. In an instant, the entire heavens and the earth seethed with excitement. Meanwhile, four afterimages crisscrossed and slashed through Si Juanji's position. This. Along with the sound of four ripping resounding, countless people watched as Si Juanji's body was slashed into pieces, causing blood to spray into the surroundings. His soul was obliterated. Meanwhile, Yi Xian returned to the battlefield. He opened his palm, and the green profound sword flew back into his grasp. He withdrew a silk handkerchief and lightly wiped off the blood on the tip of the sword, and then he spoke calmly, "Is that all? Is that all?" As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, the surroundings suddenly fell deathly silent. He'd instantly annihilated Si Juanji with a single strike of his sword. Needless to say, all the experts from the medium world were completely stunned at this moment. They were clearly aware of Si Juanji's strength. He was a terrifying existence that was merely inferior to a world god from the medium world, and he was even an expert at the peak of the high godly realm. Yet, at this moment, such a terrifying existence had actually been instantly annihilated by a single strike of Yi Xian's sword. All of them were utterly stunned. Yixian's strength was actually so terrifying. On the other hand, the experts on Yixian's side were suddenly filled with excitement, and their morale rose greatly. Yixian put the handkerchief away, and then he glanced at the experts from the medium world. Who else? All of them were speechless. Who else? Meanwhile, Emissary Zhang suddenly roared furiously, "The young master is invincible! The young master is invincible!" All of them were horrified by this roar. Qiao gazed at Yixian, who stood not too far away from her, and then she smiled sweetly. All the experts from the medium world exchanged glances. Si Juanji's death had instantly caused them to lose their pillar of support. Should we fight or not? If we don't fight, then should we surrender? But if we fight, then Yixian's terrifying strength. Right at this moment, a strand of terrifying pressure suddenly swept down from the sky. Yixian frowned when he sensed this terrifying pressure, and then he looked up into the sky. An enormous black vortex had appeared there, and then a middle-aged man walked out slowly from within it. Lan Qing's expression instantly became solemn when he saw the middle-aged man, and then he walked over to Yixian's side and spoke in a low voice. "He's a universe god from the medium world." A universe god. Yixian gazed at the universe god with a calm expression. On the other hand, the experts from the medium world became excited. A universe god. Earlier, they'd lost their pillar of support and didn't know what to do. Now that a universe god had appeared, they had hope again. In the sky, the universe god gazed silently at Yixian. Numerous strands of terrifying pressure pressed down incessantly. Yixian shook his head and smiled, and then he flicked his sleeve. A strand of sword intent shot into the sky and instantly shattered the pressure. Sword intent of the human world. In the sky, the universe god frowned slightly. He was surprised by Yixian's sword intent. Yixian looked at the universe god and smiled. "You're the universe god from the medium world." The universe god nodded. "You're impersonating." Yixian suddenly burst into laughter. "Why do you have to talk nonsense? Come and fight." Then, he suddenly opened his palm and the green profound sword in his hand soared into the sky and slashed at the universe god. In the sky, the universe god frowned slightly. He opened his palm and a long spear suddenly flew out from his palm. Pissed. A sharp tearing sound suddenly reverberated through the entire sky. Rumble. Yixian's green profound sword was blocked by the long spear directly. The moment the spear and the sword came into contact, an earth-shattering power instantly swept across the entire sky. Just then, a shadow suddenly plunged down from the sky. Below, Yixian squinted his eyes and opened his palm. In an instant, countless sword chi suddenly flew out from his palm. Rumble. As soon as the sword chi appeared, it was instantly extinguished. At the same time, Yixian's whole body directly flew tens of thousands of feet away. Seeing this scene, Emissary Zhang and the others' faces darkened. Qiao glanced at Yixian in the distance. She did not say anything, nor did she make a move. The reason why she did not make a move was very simple. She knew that Yixian was eager for a battle, and Yixian's battle could also improve himself. In the distance, after Yixian stopped, he looked at his chest. His clothes were all torn, but the armor was still there. Arya's armor had blocked the terrifying attack of the universe god just now. Yixian slightly raised the corner of his mouth. He did not expect that Arya's armor would not be outdated even at this moment. He had to admit that his father was really generous this time. In the distance, the universe god glanced at the armor on Yixian's body and slightly frowned. "What kind of armor is this?" Yixian glanced at the universe god. "How low are you in the Yang clan?" The universe god slightly frowned. "What do you mean?" Yixian said angrily. "You don't even know Arya's armor. What kind of people are you? In the Yang clan, are you still at the level of a village chief?" The universe god. 7017K. Chapter 2399. Kill the Heart. Village chief level. The universe god's face suddenly grew grave. In actual fact, he was only a small fry in the whole Yang clan. Not to mention the whole middle world, Even the Xian pavilion was just the tip of the iceberg in the Yang clan. Thinking of this, the universe god suddenly felt ashamed. He looked at Yi Xian and sneered, "Aren't you an illegitimate child too?" "Illegitimate child?" Yi Xian blinked. "Are you sure?" The universe god sneered, "If you weren't an illegitimate child, would you have been left alone? From what I know, the sword master doesn't care about you much." Yi Xian was silent. He really couldn't refute this point. Seeing Yi Xian's silence, the universe god said, "Yi Xian, forgive me for being blunt. An illegitimate child should have the awareness of an illegitimate child. Don't you think it's ridiculous that you, an illegitimate child, want to take over the Yang clan?" Yi Xian looked at the universe god and smiled. "You haven't seen my sister, right?" The universe god frowned slightly. At this moment, Yi Xian said again, "You definitely haven't seen her. How could an ant like you have seen my elder sister?" "Ha!" The universe god suddenly laughed. "Yi Xian, you're ridiculous. No, you're pathetic. You actually think that eldest miss has a sibling relationship with you. Do you know why we dare to target you?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know." The universe god sneered. "That's because eldest misinstructed." "Eldest misinstructed?" Yi Xian's expression was as calm as still water. Eldest misinstructed? Obviously, it was absolutely impossible. First, he and his sister had gone through life and death together. Their sibling relationship was very deep. Second, even if his sister had 100 guts, she wouldn't dare to kill him. After all, his father was still alive. Even he wouldn't dare to target his sister for no reason. Obviously, the universe god and the others were guessing. Just as the universe god was about to say something, Yi Xian suddenly laughed and said, "Cut the crap." As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. His aura suddenly returned to its peak. Looking at the scene, the universe god's face suddenly grew grave. "I've been cheated." The reason why Yi Xian kept talking to him just now was to stall for time. Yi Xian exerted the instant of invincibility when he killed Si Juanjia, and exerting the instant of invincibility consumed a lot of his energy. Hence, when facing this universe god, he needed to buy some time to recover his vitality. Universe god stared at Yi Xian. "Do you think you're..." Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stabbed with his sword. The space before Yi Xian suddenly split. The next moment, Yi Xian escaped from the current universe. Looking at the scene, the universe god's eyes suddenly dilated. He suddenly opened his palm and a mirror appeared in his hand. At the same time, in Central World City behind him, hundreds of thousands of light pillars suddenly soared into the sky. The next moment, the hundreds of thousands of light pillars gathered in the mirror in the universe god's hand. Rumble. Then, the mirror was as dazzling as the scorching sun. Yi Xian suddenly swung his sword. For shadows appeared around the universe god. There was a flash of ferocity in the universe god's eyes. "Break." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly flipped his right hand, and the mirror in his hand suddenly erupted with a terrifying white light. In an instant, this white light actually directly drowned the 4 afterimages. A shocking explosion suddenly resounded through the heavens and the earth. Chi 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 chi. Along with the explosion, there were 4 tearing sounds. In an instant, the terrifying white light was torn into pieces. When the white light dispersed, everyone realized that the 4 residual shadows were still there. At that very moment, there were 4 intersecting sword marks on the universe god's body. The mirror in his hand had already shattered into pieces. The universe god looked at Yi Xian blankly. "How is it possible? You're just a god. How could you kill me?" He was an expert above high god. High god. Above high god was high god. High god meant that one had already used the power of faith to a limit. It could be said that the high god realm and high god realm were worlds apart. However, at that very moment, he was killed by Yi Xian. Previously, he had already seen Yi Xian's stroke. Hence, when Yi Xian performed the stroke, he didn't belittle it at all. Instead, he decisively took out the protection formation in the city behind him to ensure that nothing went wrong. However, he didn't expect that his all-out attack and the protection formation still couldn't block Yi Xian's stroke. From afar, Yi Xian returned to his original position. He took out a silk handkerchief and wiped the blood on the tip of the green Xian sword. Then, he looked at the universe god whose soul hadn't been completely destroyed and chuckled, "That's it?" Everyone, the universe god stared at Yi Xian. "What kind of sword technique is that?" Yi Xian shook his head and sighed. "Yang clan was created by my father. You don't even know the sword technique that he created. It seems that you're not even an ant in Yang clan." The universe god roared in anger. "A warrior can be killed but not humiliated." Yi Xian smiled. "All right." Then, he raised his hand and swung his sword. The universe god was wiped out directly. Seeing the universe god wiped out, the experts from the middle world were dumbfounded. Even a universe god was killed in an instant? Not only the experts from the middle world, but even Emissary Zhang and the rest were dumbfounded. Especially Emissary Zhang. When he first got to know Yi Xian, he was sure that he could definitely kill Yi Xian with one slap. But now, Yi Xian could kill him in an instant. He grew so fast? Emissary Zhang seemed to have thought of something and glanced at Qing Qiu, who was quiet at the side. Seeing the siblings, Emissary Zhang couldn't help but smile bitterly. The siblings were more abnormal than the other. After seeing Yi Xian kill the universe god in an instant, the experts from the middle world were shocked. To be exact, they panicked. Yi Xian's power was so terrifying. How could they fight the battle? Surrender? Was it too late to surrender now? Everyone looked at each other. Just then, the sky in the distance suddenly split open. The next moment, a shadow walked out slowly. Everyone turned to look at the sky. When the shadow walked out, a shapeless pressure swept down. Yi Xian creased his eyebrows. Damn it! Another one? Just at this moment, the shadow gradually solidified, and at the instant it solidified, the entire world became illusory. The expressions of everyone here changed when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian's gaze gradually became solemn as well. After it became material, everyone saw the person clearly. It was an old man who wore a luxurious robe, had long hair that hung loosely on his shoulders, and stood with his hands behind his back. Moreover, there was a small lord character on his left chest. An expert from the middle world exclaimed abruptly when he witnessed this scene, "Lord!" But the expressions of the experts from the middle world instantly changed when they heard this. "He's from the Xian Pavilion." What was the Xian Pavilion? It was an unreachable mountain to experts at the high god realm like them. Supposedly, the Xian Pavilion would select some top-rate experts from the various worlds to enter the Xian Pavilion every 10 years. After they entered the Xian Pavilion, they wouldn't just obtain even more cultivation resources, they would obtain even more terrifying cultivation techniques. At the same time, the Xian Pavilion managed universes like the middle world. Simply speaking, the Xian Pavilion was a circle of big shots to them. Yet at this moment, a lord had actually arrived. All the experts from the middle world hurriedly knelt down and bowed. Emissary Zhang couldn't help but speak angrily, "Are all of you out of your minds? Could it be that the young master can't resist a lord? Are all of you idiots?" The young master. The experts from the middle world exchanged glances when they heard this. Meanwhile, the lord suddenly gazed at Emissary Zhang. Emissary Zhang's face was expressionless as he moved closer to Qing Qiu and spoke indifferently, "What the fuck are you looking at? I only have eyes for the young master, understand?" As soon as he finished speaking, he moved closer to Qing Qiu. Qing Qiu glanced at Emissary Zhang and remained silent. The lord gazed at Emissary Zhang with a calm expression. "A mere lord of this world dares to act presumptuously before me?" As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve, and a strand of terrifying force swept towards Emissary Zhang. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly dashed forward and slashed down with his sword. Rumble! A ray of light tore through the sky, and the terrifying force was instantly shattered by a single strike from Yi Xian. The lord's gaze descended onto Yi Xian, and he remained silent. Yi Xian chuckled, "Looks like you've come to kill me as well." The lord gazed at Yi Xian. "Yes." He didn't conceal it at all. Yi Xian chuckled, and then he opened his palm to reveal the spatial ring his father had given him. He gazed at the lord. Do you know what this is? The Lord glanced at the spatial ring in Yi Xian's hand with a calm expression. I don't recognize it. Yi Xian sighed softly. My God! Are you even considered a village in the Yang clan? Everyone else was speechless. The Lord stared at Yi Xian with a rather unsightly expression on his face. Yi Xian chuckled. Don't you want to kill me? Why aren't you attacking? After a moment of silence, the Lord asked, Do you know who wants you dead? Yi Xian furrowed his brows slightly. It can't be my father, right? The green-robed man. The Lord stared intently at Yi Xian. It's eldest young mistress. Eldest young mistress. Yang Yanxue. Yi Xian fell silent. At this moment, even he was a little fearful. Holy F***ck, is this big sister for real? But on second thought, it wasn't very likely. His big sister had been very good to him, and in order to save him, she had given him countless treasures to use, and she had even risked her life to save him. With this thought in mind, Yi Xian looked at the Lord. With your level, can you come into contact with my big sister? Hearing this, the Lord's expression froze. Seeing the Lord's expression, Yi Xian sighed in a low voice. He thought for a while and then said seriously, Geezer, I'm serious. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Could you please do some research before you do anything? Investigate first. Saying this, he took a deep breath, then said seriously, I can tell you honestly, my big sister and I have a very good relationship. Really good, we have gone through life and death together. I am not an illegitimate child, I am my father's only son. The Lord suddenly said, If you are not an illegitimate child, then why is your surname Yi and not Yang? Can you explain? Yi Xian fell silent. 7017K. Chapter 2400. Explain? How to explain? Yi Xian was speechless. At this time, the Lord said sarcastically, You can't explain it, right? You are an illegitimate child. Yi Xian sighed in a low voice. Fine, whatever you say is right. I won't explain anymore. Okay? The Lord sneered. With your IQ, you want to fool an old man? Ridiculous. Yi Xian. At this time, the Lord suddenly shouted, Men! As his voice fell, the surrounding space-time suddenly split open. The next moment, more than a dozen mysterious experts in black robes appeared in the field. These people were all holding long swords and exuding a strange aura. The Lord looked at Yi Xian with a ferocious expression. Kill this person. I will bear the consequences. No one dared to move. You will bear the consequences? I'm afraid I can't bear the consequences. No one in the field was stupid. Although Yi Xian's surname was not Yang, Yi Xian's crazy demon bloodline was real. Obviously, this was the real young master. Who would dare to kill him? After killing him, who could bear the consequences? Seeing that no one moved, the Lord frowned slightly and his expression was extremely ugly. If you don't do anything, will he let you go? Yi Xian suddenly said, Yes. Hearing this, everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, I will let bygones be bygones for those who abandon the darkness for the light now. Young master. At this time, a middle-aged man rushed directly in front of Yi Xian. His legs softened and he directly knelt in front of Yi Xian. Young master. This subordinate is willing to abandon the darkness for the light. This person was Qiu Ji, who had previously leaked the news. He had been waiting for an opportunity to abandon the darkness for the light, and now, this opportunity had finally come. Follow the Lord to the end? This was obviously not possible. Even if Yi Xian was an illegitimate child, he was definitely not someone they could kill. Moreover, his intuition told him that the young master in front of him was not an illegitimate child. This young master's divine items and sword skills were so terrifying. If he was an illegitimate child, how could he have these divine items? This might be the sword master's doing. What did that mean? That meant nurturing. What was the point of nurturing them? It was definitely to inherit the family business. Of course, the main reason was that the young master in front of him was very powerful. At this time, some middle-world powerhouses hurriedly ran to Yi Xian and knelt down in front of him. In just a short period of time, more than 100 high god state experts had knelt in front of Yi Xian, expressing their willingness to forsake the darkness and join the light. The High Lord's face turned ugly when he saw this. He didn't expect that these people would change sides. Actually, none of these people were idiots. If they were, they wouldn't have ended up like this. Now that Yi Xian was clearly the son of the sword master, and his strength was so terrifying, who would dare to go against him? Most importantly, Yi Xian was willing to give them another chance. Following the High Lord was a form of rebellion, but following the young master was a form of loyalty. More and more people knelt before Yi Xian. It didn't take long for all the others besides the group that the High Lord had brought with him to kneel before Yi Xian. The High Lord glanced coldly at Yi Xian, and then his figure gradually became ethereal. He didn't choose to attack. At this moment, he couldn't do anything to Yi Xian if he chose to attack now. The High Lord stared at Yi Xian. "You'll definitely die." As soon as he finished speaking, he and the others vanished on the spot. Yi Xian frowned slightly. If the High Lord didn't attack him, then he wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Meanwhile, Xianxia suddenly said, "Big brother, I'll go get busy. You deal with them." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "All right." Xianxia smiled sweetly, and then she turned around and left. Emissary Zhang glanced at Xianxia, and his eyelids twitched while he broke out in cold sweat. "She's gone. She's gone." He knew that the High Lord was gone. The High Lord and the others were traveling madly through space somewhere within a spatial passageway. He had to hurry back to the Xian Pavilion and let them decide. Otherwise, Yi Xian's forces would only grow stronger and stronger. Suddenly, a ray of light appeared not too far away from them. The High Lord and the others immediately stopped. A little girl was standing not too far away. It was Xianxia. The High Lord frowned slightly when he saw Xianxia. "It's you." He'd seen Xianxia just now and sensed that Xianxia wasn't simple, but he didn't think too much about it. Xianxia gazed at the High Lord. "No one can survive after threatening my brother." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly disappeared. The High Lord's pupils shrank. The next moment, he was about to make a move, but Xianxia had already appeared not too far away from them. Xianxia was expressionless. "Those who hurt my brother, no matter how far away you are, will be killed." After that, she disappeared into the distance. Behind them, the heads of the High Lord and the others suddenly fell to the ground, blood spurting out like a fountain, killed with one slash. In the Great World. At the city gate, Yi Xian looked at the experts from the middle world kneeling in front of him, his expression calm. "Get up." Hearing this, everyone hurriedly got up, but cautiously. Yi Xian smiled. "Don't be nervous, I won't settle accounts with you after the fall." Hearing this, everyone's expression instantly relaxed. Just then, Yi Xian looked at Emissary Zhang beside him. "From now on, you're a universe god from the middle world." Emissary Zhang was stunned, and the next moment he hurriedly said, "Young lord, I'm not strong enough." Yi Xian smiled. "It doesn't matter if you're not strong enough. Once you become a universe god from the middle world, a portion of the resources will be given to you first." Emissary Zhang was overjoyed, and he hurriedly knelt on one knee. "Thank you, young lord." Everyone present also cast envious gazes at Envoy Zhang. He'd become a lord of a middle world in an instant. As a lord of a middle world, the resources he enjoyed were simply unimaginable. Even though Emissary Zhang was only at the second level of the high godly realm, his future was limitless with these resources. Most of the time, it was better to ride on someone powerful than to work hard. Meanwhile, Yi Xian glanced at the experts from the middle world. "From now on, all of you shall listen to Emissary Zhang's orders." All of them hurriedly bowed respectfully and said in unison, "Yes, young lord." Yi Xian turned to look at the branch presidents of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, and all of them hurriedly bowed respectfully when they saw Yi Xian look over. Yi Xian smiled. "What do all of you want?" He knew that these fellows didn't lack money. Of course, he didn't have money either. Lan Qing, who led the group, hesitated for a moment and said, "Young Master Yi, we don't lack money, but..." Yi Xian smiled. "Power?" Lan Qing hurriedly nodded. Yi Xian smiled. How many universes are there under the control of the Yang clan? Emissary Zhang replied, a few hundred. Yi Xian nodded. All of you can establish branches in these hundreds of universes. If there are already branches in these hundreds of universes, all of you can establish more. The Yang clan will do its best to help and cooperate with all the branches that you establish. As he spoke, he paused for a moment and continued, what do all of you want me to say when I meet Miss Qing Guan? Lan Qing spoke with excitement. We hope to receive a reward from the pavilion master. They knew that Yi Xian didn't have a single hair on his head. Asking for a reward from him? They should thank the heavens if he didn't ask for money from them. So, they'd never thought of asking for a reward from Yi Xian because he was even poorer than them. But Qing Guan was different. Yi Xian glanced at them and said, when the time comes, I'll ask for a reward for all of you. As he spoke, he blinked. Do all of you understand? Lan Qing was stunned, and then he hurriedly said, yes. When the time comes, we naturally won't forget young Master Yi. Yi Xian nodded. We're all on the same side. You're treating me like an outsider. Don't treat me like an outsider. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Next to Lan Qing, a president hesitated and said, when the time comes, does he want it or not? Lan Qing's face was expressionless. Don't ask such questions. Okay. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Everyone. After Yi Xian entered the city, he went directly to the city lord's mansion, found a room, and sat down cross-legged. At this time, the Daoist suddenly said, your power of faith. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He opened his palm, and the human world sword intent gushed out from his palm. He found that his human world sword intent had become stronger. The Daoist said in a deep voice, your power of faith is getting stronger and stronger. Yi Xian said, is it a good thing? After a moment of silence, the Daoist said, not exactly. Yi Xian was a little surprised. What do you mean? The Daoist said in a deep voice, your power of faith came too fast, and it didn't settle down. I think you need to settle down now. Yi Xian was silent. The Daoist said again, also, you should study the word human in the 6-syllable Sanskrit. This word contains the human Tao, and it's mysterious. If you really understand it, coupled with your human world sword intent, you will become very terrifying. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the Qingxian sword appeared in his hand. He looked at the word, and after a moment of silence, he said, little Bai, I heard you say that this word was left behind by some sages of the human race. This human race, where is he from? How strong are those sages? After a moment of silence, the Daoist said, I can't tell you. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Why? The Daoist smiled bitterly. This involves some things about my master. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Then can you tell me how strong your master is? After a moment of silence, the Daoist said, anyway, whether it is the current universe or the boundless universe, no one dares to kill him. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Even Qing doesn't dare? The Daoist said, she dares, but if my master is not here, everything will be over. Yi Xian was silent. The Daoist said again, my master is in a very special world. Only the people of that world can truly threaten him. Yi Xian was a little curious. The Milky Way? The Daoist said, yes and no. Yi Xian's expression froze. Xiaota suddenly said, stupid Bai, can you not keep me in suspense? The Daoist sighed in a low voice. Stupid Ta, I beg you to read more books. To communicate with an uncultured Ta like you, I have become a troll. Really, as long as you speak, I want to spit at you. You are really poisonous. Yi Xian, Xiao Ta. 7017K. Chapter 2401. When he heard the Daoist's words, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He had to admit that when Xiaota acted tough, he couldn't take it anymore. The Daoist continued, in short, young master, you can study this human word. This word, together with your green Xian sword, will be invincible. Especially when your sword will and the human word are combined, the power will be endless. Yi Xian asked in a low voice, Can it be combined with my instant of invincibility? The Daoist smiled. Of course. Xian nodded and looked at the human word in his hand. After a while, Xian entered Xiaota. Inside Xiaota, Xian slowly closed his eyes. He began to feel the human word through the green Xian sword. Human? Sages? Xian was curious about the Daoist's human and the sages. However, the Daoist obviously didn't dare to tell him, so he didn't press him. The human word had merged with the green Xian sword. Therefore, he could feel the human word through the green Xian sword. After a long time, Xian's eyes suddenly narrowed. The next moment, he disappeared inside Xiaota. Boom! All of a sudden, Xian found himself in a strange world. Xian looked around. At that moment, he was in a desolate world. He was surrounded by endless mountains. There were trees that towered into the clouds, blocking out the sun. Boom! At that moment, the entire ground suddenly shook violently. Xian raised his head and looked into the distance. At the end of his vision, he saw a huge demonic beast. This demonic beast had the shape of a human. It had 2 legs, a head like an ox, and 1 eye. This demonic beast was the biggest one Xian had ever seen. The mountains that were tens of thousands of feet tall were like children in front of it. Seeing this demonic beast, Xian frowned. "The Daoist, what is this place?" After a moment of silence, the Daoist said, "The world of the word, human." A world of words? Xian was stunned. Meanwhile, Xian suddenly raised his head. A blood-red rock had appeared in the distance, and it was flying towards him. At the instant that the rock unfolded its wings, the entire heavens and the earth instantly darkened like night. As the rock flew past, it suddenly glanced downwards. However, it quickly retracted its gaze and soon disappeared into the horizon. Xian said, "Did it see me just now?" The Daoist said, "Yes." Xian was puzzled. "Then why didn't it hit me?" After a brief silence, the Daoist said, "Are you used to being targeted? Do you have persecutory delusions?" Xian was speechless. The Daoist said in a low voice, "It has no enmity with you. Why would it target you?" Xian was silent for a moment before he said, "I'm not used to it." The Daoist was speechless. Xian looked around and said, "Is it the word human that brought me here?" The Daoist said, "Yes." Xian was curious. "Why did it bring me here?" The Daoist said, "I don't know." Xian frowned. "Are you not familiar with it?" The Daoist said, "No." Xian was speechless. He looked around and opened his palm. The green profound sword appeared in his hand. He looked at the word, human, on the sword. "You have a spirit, right?" The word, human, trembled slightly in response. Xian smiled. "Can you transform?" The word, human, suddenly transformed into a shadow and appeared in front of Xian. Xian threw that human spirit a look. Then he said with a smile, "Why did you bring me here?" The human spirit was silent for a moment before it said, "Human, can I speak the truth?" Xian nodded. "Of course." The human spirit said, "You're too weak. I don't want to follow you." The smile on Xian's face froze. The human spirit continued. "Can you set me free?" Xian said indifferently, "You don't want to follow me?" The human spirit said, "Yes." Xian smiled. "I'm weak now, but I'll become strong in the future." The human spirit hesitated for a moment before it said, "Being weak is secondary. The main thing is..." At this point, it suddenly stopped. Xian pressed. "What's the main thing?" The human spirit said in a low voice, "The main thing is that your skin is too thick. I can't stand following you." Xian's expression instantly turned cold. "Ha!" The great Dao brush suddenly laughed. It was a very happy laugh. Xian shrugged. "Then leave." The human spirit hurriedly said, "Really?" Xian nodded. "Don't worry. I won't let Qing or hit you." The human spirit said happily, "Human, is what you said true? You really won't let that woman hit me?" Xian fell silent. "Damn it. This fellow doesn't seem to understand irony. What should I do?" The human spirit said again, "Human, then I'm leaving." Xian was speechless. The human spirit was about to leave. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Is my younger sister's temper good?" The human spirit hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Is it that woman in a plain dress?" Yi Xian nodded. The human spirit hurriedly said, "Not good, not good. Her temper isn't good at all. She attacks at the slightest provocation. We can't beat her. She's too terrifying." There was fear in his voice. Yi Xian said seriously, "Then if you leave, do you think she'll be angry?" The human spirit hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Didn't you say that you won't let her hit me?" Yi Xian smiled. "But what if she wants to hit you herself? Then what should I do?" The human spirit said, "Then tell her not to hit me." Yi Xian fell silent. This human spirit seemed to be quite pure. The human spirit said again, "Can I?" Yi Xian sighed softly. "She doesn't listen to me." The human spirit fell silent. Yi Xian smiled. "How about this? Follow me for 3 years. After 3 years, I guarantee that she won't hit you. What do you think?" The human spirit said, 3 years? Yi Xian nodded and said seriously, "Just 3 years. In these 3 years, follow me. After 3 years, you can leave on your own." The human spirit thought for a long time before saying, "Really?" Yi Xian smiled. "Of course, I never lie." The human spirit fell silent for a moment before saying, "But I feel that your skin is very thick. Moreover, you often trick others. Will you trick me too?" Yi Xian's expression froze. The human spirit said again, "Don't swear. I know that with that big sister in a plain dress protecting you, an oath can't bind you at all. So," Yi Xian said solemnly, "I guarantee it on my character." The human spirit said, "Don't seem to." Yi Xian, the human spirit said, "However, I'm still willing to believe you." Yi Xian was puzzled. But the human spirit said seriously, "I'm afraid that you'll ask your sister to hit me. I can't beat your sister." Yi Xian was silent. Suddenly, he felt that he had gone a bit too far, as if he was bullying a spirit. The human spirit suddenly said, "Since you're called Yi Xian, then I'll call you Little Xian. Little Xian, do you know where this place is?" Yi Xian said solemnly, "The Daoist said it's in your world." The human spirit nodded. This is the human world. A human world that was preserved by the previous master with supreme divine abilities. This is the universe beyond the current universe and the boundless universe. Let's go, I'll bring you to meet a few sages. After saying that, it turned and floated into the distance. Yi Xian followed. Along the way, Yi Xian saw many demon beasts. Yi Xian couldn't help but ask, "Human spirit, are these demon beasts powerful?" The human spirit said, "They can kill you with a slap now." Yi Xian's expression was calm. "I don't believe it." The human spirit stopped and turned to look at Yi Xian. "Do you want to give it a try?" Yi Xian laughed. "Let's give it a try." The human spirit nodded and suddenly looked at the distant horizon. "Owl demon." As soon as he finished speaking, the space in the distance suddenly split open, and in the next moment, a demonic beast charged out. This demonic beast was shaped like an eagle, and it wasn't very large. It had 3 heads, and each head had a single eye. It was extremely strange. The human spirit said, "Fight him." After saying that, it paused for a moment before saying, "Don't kill him. If you kill him, his sister will kill you. You can't beat his sister." Yi Xian, the owl demon, looked at Yi Xian. It could speak human language. Yi Xian thought about it and opened his palm. Xiao Ta appeared in his hand. He looked at Xiao Ta and said seriously, "Xiao Ta, you always say that you're invincible under 3 swords. Do you want to give it a try?" Xiao Ta said in a low voice, "Young master, are you going to trick me like this?" Yi Xian said seriously, "Why would I? I think you're very powerful. If you don't use 3 swords, who can do anything to you? You haven't shown your strength before. This is a good chance. Do you want to play with it?" Xiao Ta said, "I don't want to." Yi Xian didn't understand. "Why?" Xiao Ta said calmly, "Young master, do I look like an idiot to you?" Yi Xian, at this moment, The owl demon suddenly said, "The two of you, master and servant, come at me together." Together? Yi Xian glanced at the owl demon. Damn, it's so arrogant. Yi Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian asked in his heart, "Brother Bai, can I beat it?" The Daoist said calmly, "You can try." Yi Xian laughed. "Then I'll give it a try." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. A sword ray suddenly tore through the battlefield. At this moment, the sword ray suddenly exploded. The next moment, a figure was sent flying hundreds of thousands of feet away. Along the way, this figure crashed through almost 100 mountains. This figure was Yi Xian. After Yi Xian stopped, he looked down at his chest. There was a shallow mark on his chest armor. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian looked up at the owl demon in the distance. The owl demon said calmly, "Human, I only used less than 10% of my strength." 10%? Yi Xian looked at the mortal spirit. The mortal spirit appeared in front of Yi Xian, and it said seriously, "It's telling the truth." Yi Xian was speechless. The mortal spirit hesitated for a moment before it said, "Little Xian, we're actually quite strong. There's also Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai's main body can kill you with ease, it just keeps a low profile." It paused for a moment before it continued, "Do you understand what I mean?" Yi Xian glanced at the battlefield, and then he smiled, "I do. From now on, all of you will listen to my orders, right?" The mortal spirit, Yi Xian said seriously, "Don't worry, I won't let my younger sister hit all of you." The mortal spirit hesitated for a moment before it said, "What I mean is, you should respect us a little." Yi Xian said seriously, "I understand. From now on, we're all good brothers. We'll share weal and woe together. You'll help me fight, right?" The human spirit said, That's not what I meant. P.S. 7017K. Chapter 2402. Sigh. The Daoist sighed softly. How could a simple human spirit be a match for the cunning Yi Xian? Yi Xian smiled and said, "Let's not talk so much. Let's go meet the sage of the human race." The human spirit thought for a moment and nodded. "All right." With that, it turned around and floated into the distance. Yi Xian glanced at the demon owl, and the demon owl looked back at him. Yi Xian smiled and said, "We'll meet again." With that, he followed the human spirit in the distance. After a moment of silence, the demon owl said, "A fellow with backing. I can't afford to offend him." With that, it turned around and disappeared into the horizon. Under the lead of the human spirit, Yi Xian arrived in front of a cave. Yi Xian looked at the human spirit. "Why are you bringing me to meet the sage?" Just as the human spirit was about to speak, a white-robed old man suddenly walked out from the cave in the distance. The old man wore a white robe. Not only that, his hair was snow-white as well, and he gave off a sage-like demeanor. Of course, it was just a phantom. It wasn't his main body. After the white-robed old man walked out, the human spirit immediately flew in front of the old man and seemed very intimate. The old man looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "King Kaoshan." Yi Xian's face darkened. "Damn it. When did my nickname become so famous?" The old man sized Yi Xian up and then said with a smile, "I heard that you founded an academy." Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." The old man stroked his beard and smiled. "I've heard of your academy. That's why I got the human spirit to bring you to see me." Yi Xian smiled. "May I know what Senior has to say?" The old man chuckled. "I know that your identity is very special. Even the master of the human spirit can't do anything to you. I brought you here this time to give you some help." Yi Xian was slightly curious. "Help?" The old man nodded and opened his palm. In an instant, a terrifying power of faith appeared in his hand. Yi Xian's pupils constricted when he saw this energy of faith because he'd never seen such terrifying energy of faith. The power of faith alone was enough to make him feel the aura of death. The old man smiled and said, "What did you feel?" Yi Xian said solemnly, "Powerful." The old man shook his head. "Anything else?" Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he said, Please enlighten me, senior. The old man smiled and said, It's true. Pure. Yi Xian was silent. The old man said softly, The more real and pure the power of faith, the stronger it is. As he said that, he pointed his finger gently. In an instant, the human realm sword intent within Yi Xian's body suddenly surged out. Boom! The sword will of the human realm pierced through the clouds and shook the heavens and earth. The old man said softly when he saw Yi Xian's sword will of the human realm, Your power of faith is very good. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian and smiled, Looks like my worries were unnecessary. Yi Xian smiled and said, Senior, are you worried that my power of faith was obtained through deception? The old man nodded. They say that you like to deceive people and are very thick-skinned. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. Little Bai, did you say that? The Daoist hurriedly said, Don't blame me. I won't spread rumors. Yi Xian said, Then how do they know about all this nonsense? The Daoist hesitated for a moment and said, You're actually quite famous in our circle. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Why? The Daoist said indifferently, I won't say. Yi Xian, Xiaota suddenly said, You're definitely the one who's tarnishing the young master's reputation. The Daoist sighed softly, Does his reputation still need to be tarnished? Xiaota. At this moment, the old man in front of Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, Little fellow, come with me for a walk. I'll give you a gift later. Hearing this, Yi Xian hurriedly said, Yes, yes. Senior, please. The old man laughed heartily. Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, he led Yi Xian towards the distance. On the way, the old man smiled and said, Little brother, do you know about the human race? Yi Xian nodded, I do. The old man shook his head. No, the human race I'm talking about is different from the human race you know. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What do you mean? The old man said softly, There's an era. Do you know what era it is? Yi Xian fell silent. If you don't tell me, how would I know? The old man smiled and said, That era is the era closest to Master Daoist, which is the era when the current universe and the boundless universe were just born. In the beginning, there was no such thing as a universe, only chaos. Yi Xian said solemnly, Was it Master Daoist who broke the universe? The old man shook his head. No. Yi Xian was a little curious. Then, the old man smiled and said, A sage, he broke the chaos, and then there was this current universe and the boundless universe. Yi Xian said solemnly, What about Master Daoist? What did he do? The old man shook his head. He didn't do anything. Yi Xian, the old man said softly, the human race had a great disaster, and that time, the human race was almost destroyed. Not only the human race, but even the myriad races were almost destroyed. As he spoke, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. Yi Xian was a little curious. What was difficult? After a moment of silence, the old man said, The real disaster. Yi Xian was speechless. Can this guy just finish what he wants to say? The old man smiled and said, You can say that the human race I'm talking about is the first batch of humans in the current universe and the boundless universe. We are the first civilization after the birth of these two universes. To put it simply, we are the beginning of civilization. All martial arts and civilization originated from our era. Our era is also known as the era of the myriad races. Yi Xian said, Was Master Daoist also from that era? The old man shook his head. He wasn't. He transcended everything. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Transcended everything? The old man nodded with a solemn expression. Yi Xian hesitated and said, Is he very powerful? The old man stopped and turned to look at Yi Xian. You don't think he's powerful? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, I've seen him once. He's very modest. Xiaota said, Young master, that's because you're following Sister Tianming. If you follow Sister Tianming, everyone will be very easygoing. Yi Xian was speechless. The old man shook his head and smiled. Young brother, do you know what kind of existence Daoist's master is? Yi Xian shook his head. I really don't know. The old man was silent for a moment, then said, In any case, He's a very terrifying existence, an existence that can't be described with words, and he transcends everything. Yixian was a little puzzled. Xiao Bai, your master is so powerful, why can't he beat Qing? The deity was silent for a moment, then said, I don't know. Xiao Da suddenly laughed. Sister Qing, the eternal god. At this moment, the old man beside Yixian suddenly said, Young friend, you're a human, right? Yixian nodded, yes. The old man nodded, then you'll have to carry the banner of the human race in the future. Yixian suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned to look at the old man. Senior, I'll carry the banner of the human race. The old man nodded, yes. Yixian hurriedly shook his head. Such a heavy responsibility, if there's no benefit I'll never. At this point, he hurriedly stopped, a little embarrassed. Damn, I accidentally let it slip. The old man laughed. Young friend, do you want benefits? Yixian said seriously, Senior, I'm not that kind of person. The old man nodded, I understand. Yixian was speechless. The old man smiled. If you're willing to carry the banner of the human race, we can give you a lot of benefits. Yixian subconsciously asked, what benefits? The old man blinked. The treasure of the human race. The treasure of the human race. Yixian suddenly became a little excited. Can I take a look first? He, Yixian, was not a person who could be fooled. If he didn't show the treasure first, he wouldn't work even if he was beaten to death. At this time, the human spirit suddenly said, Little Xian, if you want to become a sage, you must have a selfless heart. You can't become a sage with such a snobbish attitude. Yixian smiled. I don't want to become a sage. Little Xian was puzzled. Why? Yixian smiled. Becoming a sage is too tiring. The old man suddenly laughed. Young friend, you're right, becoming a sage is really too tiring. Many times, the position of sage itself is a kind of restraint, a restraint on the heart. Yixian smiled, not saying a word. The old man continued, the human race has a lot of treasures. Moreover, there is a mysterious human army that we left behind. This army is now in deep sleep. If you become the king of the human race, they will listen to your orders and respect you. Yixian asked in a deep voice, How strong? The old man smiled. Any one of them can beat countless people like you. Yixian sighed in a low voice. Am I still very weak? The old man laughed, not saying a word. Yixian asked in his heart, Daoist, tell me, how big is the gap between me and Qing? After a moment of silence, Daoist said, This question is beyond my scope of knowledge, I can't answer it. Yixian. At this time, the old man opened his palm, a seal appeared in his hand, he looked at Yixian. Do you know what seal this is? Yixian shook his head. The old man smiled. Human King's sacred seal. This seal can increase the power of faith by 50%. Other than that, this seal can also gather the power of faith of the human race, the kind that is endless. Most importantly, this seal can directly confer any living being as a god, giving them godhood, giving them godhood. Yixian was a little confused. Conferment of gods. Isn't this what the divine race should do? Can the human race overstep their authority? The old man laughed. Humans and gods are equal. Our human race can also confer gods. Yixian shook his head. It's a bit messy. The old man smiled. Don't worry so much, in the future, you will slowly understand our world. As he spoke, he directly handed the human king's sacred seal to Yixian. Here, you keep it. Yixian hesitated for a moment, then said, You are so generous? Before he finished speaking, the human king's sacred seal directly turned into a golden light and entered between his eyebrows. Boom! The sacred seal directly recognized him as its master. Yixian was silent. Damn it. It seemed like he was trying to force them to buy and sell. Something was wrong. There's a trap. 7017K. Chapter 2403. The human king's seal had recognized him as its master. Needless to say, Yixian was caught off guard by the human king's seal that had appeared out of nowhere. After seeing the human king's sacred seal recognize him as its master, a meaningful smile immediately appeared on the elder's face. When Yi Xian looked at the old man's expression returned to normal. My friend, how do you feel? Yi Xian was silent. How do I feel? His intuition told him that he had been tricked. Yi Xian smiled. Sir, did you just say that if I become the queen of the human clan, I can mobilize a mysterious troop? The old man nodded. Yes. Yi Xian looked at the old man. How do I mobilize them? The old man smiled. Let's walk around and you'll know. Yi Xian was silent. The old man looked into the distance and smiled. My friend, I'll give you another benefit. As he spoke, he opened his palm and the human spirit flew into his hand. Looking at the human spirit in his hand, a complicated look flashed in the old man's eyes. He said softly, My friend, this human spirit is extremely powerful, but it is pure in nature. I hope you can treat it well. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. The human spirit in his hand transformed into a white light and entered between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Boom! Yi Xian's eyes widened. 2 white lights shot out from his eyes. In an instant, the world shook. At this moment, countless demonic beasts in this mysterious world turned to look at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's facial features suddenly became distorted. Countless images flashed in his head like a flash of lightning. These were images from the era of the myriad races. In these images, he saw other races besides the human race. However, these images were scattered. After a long time, Yi Xian's expression returned to normal. He looked at the old man. The human race. The old man nodded. It was a tragic era. Yi Xian was silent. From these images, he knew that the old man before him had died in battle. Not only this old man, but all the sages of the human race had died in battle. Other than the human race, there were other races. Yi Xian said in a low voice, What sort of calamity did you encounter all those years ago? After a moment of silence, the old man shook his head and said nothing. Yi Xian was speechless. The old man suddenly stopped and looked into the distance. In the depths of the mountain range, there were 12 statues. These 12 statues were 10,000 zhang tall and each of them held a long spear in their hands, looking down at the world with disdain. The old man softly said, 12 battle saints. These 12 people are all warriors of the human race. In the beginning, there were 167 of them. Now there are only 12 of them left. In order to continue protecting the human race, they have allowed themselves to sleep in the statues and await the call of the new human king. Yi Xian looked at the 12 statues. I can wake them up now, right? The old man nodded. Sure, but I don't recommend that you wake him up now. Yi Xian looked at the old man. Why? The old man smiled and said, They can be treated as one of your trump cards. Yi Xian fell silent. At this moment, the old man opened his palm and a storage ring slowly floated in front of Yi Xian. Inside this storage ring are the treasures left behind by the human race. I'll give it to you now. You can deal with it yourself. Yi Xian glanced at the storage ring. In the next moment, he hurriedly took the storage ring and said, Don't worry, senior. I will definitely carry the banner of the human race. As a human, I will not shirk my responsibilities. The old man laughed, and his laughter shook the heavens. Gradually, the old man's body became illusory. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Senior, you're about to disappear completely. Can you tell me why you chose me? The old man fell silent for a moment before he said, We lost all those years ago, and we still have no chance of winning this time. So, I chose to look for external help. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. External help? The old man looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Thus, you are the external help of the human race. Yi Xian said in a low voice, I'm not that strong. The old man smiled like a sly old fox. You're not that strong, but the people behind you are. You are the king of the human race, and the people behind you are on the side of the human race. This time, the human race will rise completely. Yi Xian fell silent. It was just as he had guessed. The old man had taken a fancy to the people and forces behind him. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian said in a low voice, Won't the master of Daoist help you? The old man shook his head. He transcends everything. Yi Xian wanted to say something else, but the old man said again, "Young friend, the human race is in your hands." As soon as he finished speaking, his aura became dimmer and dimmer. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he bowed slightly. "Senior," the old man smiled. "Are you reluctant? Don't be reluctant. All good things must come to an end." Yi Xian suddenly said, "What I mean is, do you have anything left for me?" The old man's expression froze. The next moment, he glared at Yi Xian. After saying that, he disappeared. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Daoist's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. "Congratulations." Yi Xian collected his thoughts. He looked around and said, "Little Bai, do you know anything about this human era?" Daoist said, "A little." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "What happened to them back then?" Daoist fell silent. Yi Xian frowned. At this moment, Daoist hurriedly said, "I only know the general situation of that era. I don't know the specifics. I only know that after that battle, Master intervened." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Your master intervened?" Daoist said in a low voice, "Yes." "If it wasn't for Master's intervention, let me tell you, all living beings in this current universe and the boundless universe would have disappeared." Yi Xian said, "Tell me in detail." Daoist sighed softly. "It's not that I don't want to tell you, but I really don't know much. I only know that back then, the myriad races suffered a crushing defeat. They almost destroyed the entire current universe and the boundless universe." Xiaota suddenly said, "That's not right. Stupid Bai, as far as I know, your master is the source of all causes and effects. Everything that exists and has never existed is controlled by him." Daoist suddenly interrupted Xiaota. "Who told you this?" Xiaota said, "No one told me. I know it myself." Daoist said angrily, "Speak the truth." After a moment of silence, Xiaota said, "I heard it from Sister Tianming once." Daoist was silent for a long time before he sighed softly. Yi Xian suddenly said, "The source of all causes and effects? Little Bai, can you tell me in detail?" Daoist said in a low voice, "When you reach Senior Tianming's level, you will know what kind of existence Master belongs to. Even if I tell you now, you won't understand. As for this era of 10,000 races, I can only tell you that when something goes out of control, there is only one explanation, and that is the appearance of a super terrifying heaven-defying person, just like your sister. Only a super heaven-defying person of this level can make Master feel helpless." Hearing this, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. "You mean, there is someone who can stand shoulder to shoulder with the three swords?" Daoist said, "I don't know. Many times, there are some special people who may not be particularly strong, but their identities are extremely special. Even Master can't do anything to them." Yi Xian said, "For example?" Daoist said, "For example, although your strength is as weak as a chicken, Master can't do anything to you." Yi Xian's expression froze. Daoist continued, "No matter what, someone who can make Master helpless must be extremely terrifying. The other party is either special like you, or they are extremely powerful. And now, you have taken up the banner of the human race, which means that your karma has been formed. As for the future, I don't know, because I can't detect your future." Yi Xian was silent. Xiaota suddenly said, "Young Master, don't worry. Sister Tianming is forever a god." Yi Xian. A moment later, Yi Xian collected his thoughts. He opened his palm, and the storage ring that the old man had given him appeared in his hand. There were nearly 30 billion universe veins in the storage ring. In addition, there were 100 million special spirit veins. The purity of these 100 million special spirit veins far exceeded the universe veins. Yi Xian was a little curious. "Little Bai, what kind of spirit vein is this?" Daoist said, "Universe vein, a very rare spirit vein. It is a spirit vein that cultivators must use in the future. It is extremely precious. You can keep it." Yi Xian nodded slightly, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Yi Xian was finally no longer poor. He didn't know if his current wealth could compare with Qingguan's. The next time they met, they could compare. And in this storage ring, there were 12,000 battle armors. Yi Xian carefully looked at them. These battle armors were pure gold and extremely hard. Yi Xian tested them with the green profound sword. He found that the green profound sword could break these battle armors, but apart from the green profound sword, his normal sword qi couldn't damage these battle armors at all. These battle armors were inferior to the area battle armor, but they were the most powerful treasured armor he had seen apart from the area battle armor. If these battle armors were taken to the outside world, cultivators above the great deity realm would find it difficult to damage them. Apart from these battle armors, he found hundreds of thousands of talismans and tens of millions of ancient books. These ancient books were left behind by the humans during the era of the 10,000 tribes, and recorded the most brilliant civilization of the entire human race. These ancient books were the most precious, because there were many cultivation methods in them. He took a glance and found that these cultivation methods were far superior to the martial arts civilization that he had come into contact with. Apart from these, there were some special divine weapons. There were tens of thousands of them. Of course, these divine weapons couldn't compare to Xiao Ta and the green profound sword, but any one of them would definitely be top-notch in the outside world. Yi Xian looked at the storage ring in front of him and felt like he was dreaming. After coming to this place, he actually became the human king of the human race and inherited such a large amount of the human race's inheritance. There might be surprises every day. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Little Bai, aren't there 10,000 clans? Can you tell me where the other race's legacy grounds are? I can go for a walk. I feel that it's a waste of talent for me to carry the banner of the human race with my strength. I want to carry the banner of all the races." Daoist. P.S. Explosion in advance. 7017K. Chapter 2404. Carry the flag. Daoist spoke solemnly when he heard Yi Xian. "Do you think it's for fun? Carrying the flag means responsibility, and you have to take responsibility. Do you understand?" Yi Xian smiled. "In any case, I've already carried the flag of the human race, so carrying a few more won't make any difference." Daoist fell silent for a moment before he said, "I don't know where the inheritances of the other races are." Yi Xian frowned slightly. Meanwhile, Daoist said, "Digest the inheritances of the human race first. As for the inheritances of the other races, we'll talk about it when we have the chance in the future." Yi Xian thought about it and felt that it made sense. He hadn't even fully digested the inheritances of the human race, so he was being too greedy to go after the inheritances of the other races. Yi Xian restrained his thoughts and opened his palm. The green profound sword appeared in his hand, and the human spirit had returned to the sword. Actually, if Yi Xian didn't agree, then the human spirit wouldn't be able to leave the sword at all. After all, it was Daoist's master who had personally fused the human spirit into the sword. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes while the sword in his hand trembled slightly. A short moment later, he suddenly slashed with it. A ray of sword energy flew out. The ray of sword energy was surrounded by a faint golden glow. It was the faith energy of the human spirit. That ray of sword energy instantly tore the entire world into two. At this moment, countless demon beasts in the world raised their heads and looked towards Yi Xian with fear in their eyes. The human spirit. They weren't afraid of Yi Xian, but they were afraid of the human spirit. After all, the human spirit was the faith energy left behind by generations of sages, and it wasn't something that demon beasts like them could resist. Yi Xian suddenly glanced at the surroundings and sensed numerous formidable demon beasts. Are these demon beasts from the other races, or? The human spirit said, they belong to the human clan. Back then, the human clan had tamed many powerful demon beasts. Most of these are the descendants of those powerful demon beasts. Only a few survived back then. Yi Xian blinked. So, they are also under my control, right? The human spirit said, yes. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. At that moment, the human spirit continued. However, demonic beasts only respect the strong. Therefore, it's best that you don't use your status as a human emperor to order them around. Otherwise, they won't respect you. When you become stronger, they will naturally listen to your orders obediently. Yi Xian laughed and said, "If I become stronger, I might not need them anymore. It's because I'm weak now that I need their help." Human spirit. Yi Xian laughed and left the human spiritual world. It had to be said that the harvest this time was extremely great. There was a huge fortune and countless divine objects. In addition, there was also a large group of super strong fighters. Right now, he was like the sun at high noon. Of course, Yi Xian still tried his best to calm himself down, because he often couldn't stay cool for more than 3 days. He was now in the High God realm. It could be said that he was invincible in the High God realm. He also had a large group of fighters. However, coming into contact with the human race made him feel that it might not be long before a new powerful enemy appeared. Keep a low profile. To avoid being slapped in the face. After returning to the Middle World, Yi Xian found that the Middle World's academy had been established. The next step was to recruit students and teachers. After Envoy Zhang became the Middle World's lord, he was very concerned about Yi Xian's Guanxian Academy. Not only did he personally choose some teachers, but he also personally collected all the ancient books in the Middle World. It could be said that Envoy Zhang personally did everything to establish the Guanxian Academy. This made Qing Qiu feel much more relaxed. Somewhere in the courtyard, Yi Xian and Qing Qiu walked slowly. Envoy Zhang was behind the siblings. Qing Qiu laughed and said, "Brother, the academy has been built. However, we have a problem now. Along the way, we have built too many academies. We are currently short of manpower. Therefore, I suggest that we stop moving forward. First, we manage the academies that we have now, then we move forward." Yi Xian nodded. Okay. During this period of time, they had been advancing too quickly. They had taken over too many worlds. Not to mention others, just the large and small universes that the Middle World controlled numbered in the hundreds. The current Guanxian Academy was really short of manpower. Qing Qiu turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled. "Brother, release your human realm sword intent." Yi Xian didn't ask much. He directly released his human realm sword intent. At this moment, his human realm sword intent had become much stronger. Qing Qiu suddenly opened her hands. The green profound sword appeared in Qing Qiu's hands. After the green profound sword fell into Qing Qiu's hands, it suddenly trembled slightly, as if it was responding to something. Qing Qiu sized up the green profound sword, and then he said with a smile, "Big brother, the word, human, on this sword contains boundless energy of faith. Can you utilize it now?" Yi Xian nodded. "I can use it a little, but I can't use it completely." Qing Qiu smiled slightly. "This word is equivalent to the ocean. You will always have this word, which is equivalent to having the ocean behind you, and you can draw water from it infinitely. However, this isn't good enough. You should jump into the ocean and become one with it." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Become one with it?" Qing Qiu nodded. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, "This word doesn't seem to be willing to recognize me as its master." This word was following him now, but it didn't really recognize him as its master. Qing Qiu said indifferently, "Let me talk to it." The human spirit suddenly said, "I don't want to talk to it. I don't want to talk to it." Qing Qiu directly ignored the human spirit, picked up the green profound sword and disappeared on the spot. Yi Xian, Emissary Zhang's expression became a little strange. Not long after, Qing Qiu appeared in front of Yi Xian and Emissary Zhang again. Qing Qiu suddenly removed the human word and said, "It is willing now." Yi Xian was stunned and then said, "This?" Qing Qiu smiled. "It is very easy to talk to. I said a few words to it, and it agreed." Emissary Zhang glanced at Qing Qiu and said nothing. Yi Xian looked at the human spirit. "Are you willing to recognize me as your master?" The human spirit hesitated for a moment, and then said with a trembling voice, "I am willing." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Are you not willing?" Qing Qiu glanced at the human spirit, and the human spirit hurriedly said, "I am willing. I am willing." I will recognize you as my master now." After saying that, it turned into a beam of light and disappeared into the space between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Boom. As soon as the human spirit recognized Yi Xian as its master, Yi Xian's pupils suddenly shrank, and two beams of golden light burst out from his eyes. Rumble. In an instant, the whole world shook violently. At this moment, endless power of faith kept gushing out from Yi Xian's body. The powerful power of faith was like a volcanic eruption, extremely frightening. Seeing this scene, Emissary Zhang was shocked. The power of faith was so strong that he had never seen it before. Qing Qiu suddenly opened his palm, and a wave of sword light suddenly enveloped Yi Xian. In an instant, Yi Xian's power of faith was directly suppressed back into Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian suddenly roared, and his face twisted. Qing Qiu suddenly said, "Big brother, let the power of faith fuse with your mortal sword intent." Hearing this, Yi Xian hurriedly tried. However, he noticed that the power of faith didn't fuse with his mortal sword intent at all. Qing Qiu frowned slightly when she saw this, and she was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly roared, "I'm the king of humans, and I should protect the human race. If all of you have faith in me, I'll protect the human race for generations to come." The king of humans? There was no response. Qing Qiu slowly clenched his right hand, and he was about to attack. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Faith in me is equivalent to faith in my younger sister." Boom. As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, the human spirit trembled violently all of a sudden. In the next moment, the boundless power of faith directly merged with his human world sword will. Both sword wills were of the utmost benevolence. Therefore, the two did not reject each other. A sword howl suddenly shook the heavens and the earth. In an instant, Yi Xian's mortal sword intent skyrocketed, and it wasn't just skyrocketing. Moreover, it was actually slowly undergoing a qualitative change. Emissary Zhang fell silent, and he sighed with emotion in his heart. So that's how people cultivate. Alas. Emissary Zhang sighed in his heart. Comparisons are odious. Regardless of whether it's Yi Xian or Qing Qiu, cultivating is like cheating. How can honest people like me compete with them? Meanwhile, Yi Xian's mortal sword intent grew stronger and stronger. Qing Qiu watched silently from the side. As if she'd thought of something, she suddenly turned to glance at Emissary Zhang. Emissary Zhang hurriedly bowed slightly. "What can I do for you, Miss Qing Qiu?" Qing Qiu thought for a moment and said, "You're at the second level of the godly realm now. Am I right?" Emissary Zhang said respectfully, "Yes." Qing Qiu shook her head. "My cultivation is too low, so it's not easy to get things done." As she spoke, she suddenly opened her palm, and a strand of sword energy entered the space between Emissary Zhang's brows. Bang! Emissary Zhang's body trembled violently, and countless pieces of information surged into his mind. Meanwhile, Qing Qiu took Yi Xian's spatial ring, and then she took out 3 billion universe veins and handed it to Emissary Zhang. "Go to Xiaota and cultivate with the method I gave you. It should be easy for you to reach the Supreme God realm." Emissary Zhang knelt before Qing Qiu and said in a trembling voice, "Thank you, Miss Qing Qiu." What Qing Qiu gave him was a cultivation method that he'd never seen before. Qing Qiu smiled lightly. "If you want to thank someone, thank my brother. You're very loyal and attentive to him, so the stronger you are, the more help you'll be to him." Emissary Zhang knelt before Yi Xian and kowtowed. "Thank you, young master." Needless to say, Emissary Zhang was very excited at this moment. Now, he didn't just have a cultivation method, he had money, and he had a heaven-defying cultivation place like Xiaota. He knew that it really couldn't be any easier for him to attain the Supreme God realm. At this moment, he suddenly understood something. It was just like how chivalry was written in novels. When you can't become the protagonist, then follow the protagonist. Yi Xian, who was cultivating, didn't respond to Emissary Zhang's gratitude. Qing Qiu grinned. "Go to Xiaota and cultivate." Emissary Zhang bowed deeply once more, and then he entered Xiaota. Qing Qiu gazed at Yi Xian and grinned while her eyes were filled with tenderness. "Big brother, I'll grow up with you in this lifetime." 7017K. Chapter 2405. Yi Xian's sword intent grew stronger and stronger after he devoured and fused the faith energy within the human spirit. The space in the surroundings gradually seethed. Qing Qiu stood on guard silently at the side. She sat in front of Yi Xian while holding her chin in her hands, and her eyes were filled with tenderness as she gazed at Yi Xian. After an unknown period of time, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes, and then two rays of light flashed within them. In an instant, the space before him was blasted apart by these two rays of light, but it didn't take long for it to return to normal. A short moment later, Yi Xian took a deep breath, and then he stood up slowly. At the instant that he stood up, the space around him instantly became illusory. Qing Qiu grinned. "Big brother, are you done?" Yi Xian opened his palm, and then a strand of golden sword intent suddenly shot into the sky. In an instant, the heavens and the earth were torn apart. Yi Xian fell into deep thought as he gazed at the strand of sword intent that shot into the starry sky. The sword intent of the world had transformed. Presently, just a strand of sword intent was sufficient to crush a supreme expert with ease. It wasn't exaggerated at all. Moreover, his sword intent had a spirit of its own. It was that human spirit. Presently, the human spirit had become the spirit of his sword intent, and it could be said that his sword intent truly possessed its own intelligence. To a certain extent, his sword intent was even stronger than himself. Of course, the sword intent was born because of him. Without him, the sword intent was like a rootless duckweed, and it was completely meaningless. Meanwhile, Qing Qiu walked over to Yi Xian and grinned. "Congratulations, big brother." Yi Xian restrained his thoughts and spoke softly. "I haven't completely absorbed the faith energy." The faith energy. He'd forcefully devoured and fused the faith energy of the human race. So, even though his sword intent had been strengthened, he was unable to truly obtain the faith energy, and it was like killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. However, he had no other choice. Because almost all the humans that had once believed in the sages had perished now. He couldn't possibly let some dead people come back to life and worship him, could he? As though he had thought of something, Yi Xian looked at Qing Qiu. "Lass, I'm curious about something." Qing Qiu nodded. "Go ahead, brother." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "These sages are definitely very powerful. The reason why they are so powerful is because of the power of faith from the masses. If they lose the power of faith one day, doesn't that mean?" Qing Qiu nodded lightly. "You're right. They rely on the myriad of living beings in the world. Without the myriad of living beings in the world, they wouldn't have the energy of faith, and without the energy of faith, they would be equivalent to duckweed without roots. So, big brother, you can't rely too much on the energy of faith. You can use the energy of faith, but you can't treat it as everything." Yi Xian was silent. Qing Qiu smiled and said, "Don't worry. Cultivate first. When your energy of faith reaches a certain level, I'll tell you how to surpass the energy of faith." Yi Xian looked at Qing Qiu. "Lass, you seem to know a lot." Qing Qiu blinked. "Of course. I really like reading." Yi Xian laughed. He took Qing Qiu's hand and said, "Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left with Qing Qiu. In the depths of the starry sky, there was a floating palace. The Xian Pavilion. The Xian Pavilion controlled hundreds of universes, and it was extremely powerful. At this moment, there were 9 people gathered in the Xian Pavilion. The leader of the group was an old man. The old man was the current pavilion master, Su Ming. Su Ming glanced at them and said, "Tell me about it." All of them fell silent. Su Ming said indifferently, "Master Yuan wants us to kill." Everyone within the hall frowned when they heard this. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man walked forward and spoke in a low voice. "How do we kill him? He possesses the bloodline of the sword master, and he's the young master of my Yang clan. How would we explain ourselves to the sword master if we kill him?" The others hurriedly nodded. They weren't idiots. Yi Xian was the young master, and his identity had been confirmed. Under such circumstances, wouldn't it be insubordination to attack Yi Xian? How would they explain themselves if they killed him? Su Ming's expression was calm. Master Yuan wants us to kill him. Master Yuan. All of them fell silent. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man spoke abruptly, then why don't we let him do it himself? The others hurriedly nodded to express their agreement. Su Ming shook his head. I want to let him do it himself, but it's obvious that he doesn't want to do it himself. The middle-aged man spoke in a low voice. Pavilion Master, he's clearly using us. After we kill the young master, he'll sacrifice us to appease the public. Su Ming sighed softly. How could I not know? But we have no other choice. A higher official can crush us to death. The middle-aged man shook his head. Pavilion Master, we can't do this. Su Ming looked at the middle-aged man. Li Qiu, we have no other choice. The middle-aged man named Li Qiu frowned slightly. Why not? After a moment of silence, Su Ming said, because it's the first Mrs. idea. Li Qiu was astonished. Everyone in the surroundings was astounded and stunned when they heard this. Su Ming sighed in a low voice. We have to choose sides now. Either we stand with the first miss, or we stand with young Master Yi Xian. Which side do you stand on? Everyone was silent. Which side? If they had to choose, it would definitely be the first miss. Who didn't know that the sword master doted on the first miss? Su Ming said, we can also play dumb, but if we do that, we will all be killed in the end. Everyone was silent. Su Ming got up and glanced at the people in the hall. What's your choice? If you don't want to stand with the first miss, you can leave now. I won't stop you. However, once you leave this hall, you'll be withdrawing from the Xian Pavilion and the Yang clan. Withdrawing from the Xian Pavilion and the Yang clan. Everyone's face became a little gloomy. How could they be willing to withdraw from the Xian Pavilion and the Yang clan? Withdrawing from the Xian Pavilion and the Yang clan was equivalent to giving up everything they had now and the future. Without the support of the Yang clan, they would be equal to a rogue cultivator after leaving, and they would no longer get any resources. At this moment, Su Ming suddenly said, since no one wants to leave, it means that you've made your choice. With that, his eyes gradually became cold. Get ready to kill with one blow. In the hall, everyone's expression gradually became solemn. After the meeting, Li Qiu quietly left the Xian Pavilion. He decided to withdraw. Naturally, he would not say that just now. Wasn't it courting death to say that in front of so many people? There were two reasons why he chose to withdraw. First, Yi Xian had the crazy demon bloodline. A young master who had awakened the crazy demon bloodline, even if he was an illegitimate child, was definitely recognized by the sword master. He was not someone that they, as subordinates, could touch. Second, if the first miss really wanted to kill Yi Xian, why didn't the other party directly send a super strong master? Instead, they wanted to kill him? In his opinion, there was something very wrong with this matter. Many times, you could get everything by taking a gamble, but it was also possible that you would get nothing. In life, one had to be cautious. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Li Qiu. The person who came was Su Ming. Seeing Su Ming, Li Qiu's face suddenly sank. Su Ming looked at Li Qiu. Do you want to send a message? After a moment of silence, Li Qiu said, Pavilion Master, don't you think this matter is strange? This matter? Su Ming shook his head. If the first Mrs. Plan is ruined because of you, everyone in the Xian Pavilion will die. So, have a safe journey. After that, he disappeared directly. At the same time, several terrifying and powerful auras appeared around him. Seeing this scene, Li Qiu's pupils suddenly shrank. In the middle world, somewhere in the courtyard, Yi Xian was lying on a chair, holding an ancient book in his hand. Next to Yi Xian was Lan Qing, the president of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion branch. Because Lan Qing had taken the initiative to lend him 3 billion, Lan Qing now received the most benefits. Now Lan Qing was in charge of the entire medium world, and his power could be said to be the greatest among all the branch presidents. Yi Xian suddenly put down the ancient book in his hand, then smiled and said, Is there any movement in the Xian Pavilion? Lan Qing said in a deep voice, Young master, I came here today for this matter. According to my spy, the Xian Pavilion may have a big move soon. Yi Xian looked at Lan Qing. A big move against me? Lan Qing nodded. Yi Xian chuckled. Lan Qing hesitated, then said, Young Master Yi, aren't you worried? Yi Xian smiled and said, What am I worried about? Lan Qing said in a deep voice, Why do they dare to do this? My intuition tells me that this is very abnormal. Yi Xian smiled slightly. You want to say that this may be my sister's idea? Lan Qing hesitated, then nodded. Yi Xian shook his head. It's not my sister's idea. Lan Qing frowned slightly. Why? Yi Xian sighed in a low voice. My sister and I have been through life and death together. If she really wanted to be the Yang clan's patriarch, she didn't need to kill me at all. She just needed to say a word and I would let her be. Secondly, my father is still alive. Even if my sister had 100 guts, she wouldn't dare to do such a thing like killing her own brother. Speaking up to here, the corner of his mouth slightly raised, and the most important reason is that my sister knows of my sister's existence. He could feel that his sister was still very afraid of Qing. Kill him? His sister would trick him, but she absolutely wouldn't dare to kill him. Thinking of this, Yi Xian couldn't help but shake his head and smile. What is this? A group of self-righteous guys, presumptuously guessing my sister's thoughts. Lan Qing said in a deep voice, But young master, it can't go on like this. You have to contact the Yang clan's headquarters, otherwise, they will keep coming to you for trouble. This. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. No need. Lan Qing was a little puzzled. Why? Yi Xian smiled slightly. The clouds and the wind were light. I have nothing to fear. At this time, Xiaoda suddenly said, Young master, the real reason is that you don't know where the Yang clan's headquarters is. Yi Xian. 7017K. Chapter 2406. Yang clan headquarters? Yi Xian was speechless. He really didn't know. Of course, he didn't really care about it now. He really didn't care about the Yang clan. Without his father, the Yang clan wasn't that strong. He wanted to be like his father, Qing, and his elder brother. One person was strong, and the whole clan was invincible. Lan Qing suddenly said, Young Master Yi, do you need to contact the pavilion master? Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and shook his head with a smile. No need. If he wanted to fight now, as long as he awakened the 12 battle sages in the human spiritual world, the ordinary powerhouses of the Yang clan would definitely not be his opponent. In addition, his current strength was also very heaven-defying. He didn't care about the trivial outer powerhouses of the Yang clan. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Lan Qing nodded slightly and said nothing. At this moment, Envoy Zhang suddenly appeared. When he saw Envoy Zhang, Lan Qing's pupils suddenly shrank. Zhang? Brother Zhang? Supreme God? Envoy Zhang said excitedly, Yes. Lan Qing felt as if he was struck by lightning. How long has it been? Lan Qing felt a little doubtful about life. At this moment, Envoy Zhang suddenly bowed deeply to Yi Xian, Young master. His expression was extremely respectful. He knew that the reason why he could reach the next level and directly reach Supreme God was all because of this man in front of him. Yi Xian smiled slightly. How do you feel? Envoy Zhang smiled. Very good. Yi Xian laughed. Don't be satisfied with this. In the future, I will need you to help me more. Do you understand? Hearing this, Envoy Zhang suddenly became excited. This subordinate will die 10,000 times. Yi Xian nodded. Go do what you need to do. Envoy Zhang bowed deeply and then retreated. Yi Xian looked at Lan Qing. Continue to pay attention to the Xian pavilion. Lan Qing hurriedly said, Yes. With that he also retreated. Yi Xian chuckled, picked up the ancient book and continued to read. He had been thinking about one thing, which was the internal affairs of the Yang clan. When a clan was strong to a certain extent, the people below would more or less become arrogant and then lose themselves. There was no doubt that the same problem had arisen within the Yang family. It should be said that the internal problems of the Yang clan were not small. Thinking of this, Yi Xian sighed softly. It seemed that he had to reorganize the Yang clan. Right at this moment, Qing Qiu appeared beside Yi Xian. She smiled and said, Brother, This place has basically stabilized. I'm going to take a look at other places. Otherwise, I won't be at ease. Yi Xian thinks for a moment, then takes out the green profound sword and passes it to Qing Qiu. This sword is fast, take it. Qing Qiu blinked. I don't need it. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Qing Qiu giggled. It's not difficult to travel through time and space without any obstruction. With that, she disappeared on the spot. Yi Xian remained silent for a moment before he said, Why am I like trash in front of these girls? Was it an illusion? Xiaota suddenly said, It's not an illusion. Yi Xian, Daoist also said, Young Master Yi, after following you for so long, I found a good point about you. Yi Xian was curious. What good point? Daoist said, You know your place. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. This broken tower and broken pen are getting more and more arrogant recently. At this moment, Emissary Zhang suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Emissary Zhang said in a low voice, Young Master. Yi Xian did not answer. Instead, he raised his head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. He frowned. Are the people from the Xian Pavilion here? Emissary Zhang nodded. Yes. Xian Pavilion. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed. Murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Had this group of people gone mad? Are they really going to target me? Where are their brains? Are they brainless? At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in the sky. When this old man appeared in the sky, an invisible pressure instantly enveloped the entire middle world. The godly realm. Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary godly realm expert. Meanwhile, Lan Qing appeared by Yi Xian's side, and he spoke in a low voice, Young Master Yi, he's the pavilion master of the Xian Pavilion, Su Ming. He's probably at the peak of the godly realm. As he spoke, he glanced into the distance and continued, but this time, they've sent at least 12 godly realm experts, 12 supreme gods. Emissary Zhang's face instantly fell when he heard this. Presently, he was the only supreme god on their side. Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Su Ming, and Su Ming's face remained expressionless when he saw Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled, Pavilion Master Su, do you want to have a chat? Su Ming spoke calmly, May I know what you want to talk about? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Did my older sister tell all of you that she wanted to kill me? Su Ming gazed at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian smiled, Actually, I truly think that you can ask the higher-ups and find out if my older sister really wants to kill me. What do you think? Su Ming fell silent for a short moment before he said, The higher-ups intend to kill you. Yi Xian frowned slightly, Who's that? Su Ming's expression was calm, Master Yuan. Yi Xian said, What rank is he in the Yang clan? Su Ming fell silent. He really didn't know what rank Master Yuan was in the Yang clan. All he knew was that Master Yuan was his superior. Besides that, he didn't know much about Master Yuan. Yi Xian sighed softly. Since you were able to become the pavilion master and manage an area, your intelligence is definitely not low. Let me ask you, if my older sister really wants to kill me, then why didn't she just send someone stronger? Why did she send all of you instead? Su Ming shook his head. The higher-ups intend to kill you. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. Actually, you're not sure if it's my older sister's intention, right? Su Ming fell silent. Of course he wasn't sure. As far as he was concerned, Master Yuan probably couldn't come into contact with Yang Yanxue, so he was suspicious of what Master Yuan said. Su Ming sighed softly, Young Master, I'm curious about something, and I hope you can explain it. Yi Xian nodded, Speak. Su Ming looked straight at Yi Xian. They said that you're an illegitimate child, is that true? Yi Xian smiled, What do you think? Su Ming fell silent for a moment before he said, If you're not an illegitimate child, then why is your surname Yi and not Yang? Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. Su Ming continued, I hope young master can explain it. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he smiled, Do you know your sword master well? Su Ming shook his head, I don't know much. Yi Xian smiled, Then do you know your sword master's past? Su Ming frowned slightly. A moment later, his pupils dilated. Release. Raise. Then, under everyone's gaze, he suddenly knelt down and said with a trembling voice, "Your subordinate, Pavilion Leader Su Ming of Xian Pavilion, greets young master." Behind him, the group of experts hesitated for a moment before they knelt down one after another. Su Ming wished he could slap himself to death. He didn't know much about the green-robed swordmaster, but he knew one thing, and that was that the green-robed swordmaster had been left to fend for himself. This was because the Yang clan had records of the green-robed swordmaster's past. Obviously, Yi Xian was also raised freely. Why was he raised freely? In other words, he was being nurtured. Thinking of this, Su Ming's body trembled even more. Yi Xian looked at Su Ming, who was kneeling in front of him, and didn't speak. Seeing that Yi Xian didn't speak, Su Ming hurriedly said, "Please forgive me, young master." Yi Xian smiled, "Get up." Su Ming didn't dare to get up. Yi Xian smiled, "Get up. I don't blame you." Su Ming hesitated for a moment before he slowly got up. Yi Xian smiled, "How do I contact Master Yuan?" Su Ming hurriedly said, "I'll do it." After he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a token in his hand soared into the sky, straight into the depths of the horizon. Yi Xian looked deep into the sky. Soon the space there started to tremble. Soon a shadow showed up there. "Master Yuan." Yi Xian looked at Master Yuan and smiled. "You're the one who said my sister wants to kill me?" Master Yuan paid no attention to Yi Xian, and he gazed at Su Ming instead. "This is your decision?" Su Ming spoke in a low voice. "Master Yuan, I firmly believe that the eldest young miss wouldn't do something so heartless." Master Yuan chuckled. "How interesting. A tiny pavilion master actually dared to rebel. Who gave you the courage to do that?" As soon as he finished speaking, a strand of terrifying pressure swept down from the sky. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings instantly changed when this terrifying pressure appeared, because merely this pressure was probably sufficient to destroy Middle World City. Meanwhile, Emissary Zhang obstructed Yi Xian's path and was about to attack. However, Yi Xian suddenly flicked his sleeve, and a ray of light shot into the sky. Bang! The ray of sword light forcefully blocked the terrifying pressure, but it did not shatter it. Yi Xian frowned slightly when he witnessed this scene, and then he suddenly opened his palm and a strand of sword intent shot into the sky. Bang! In an instant, the terrifying pressure in the sky was instantly slashed into pieces and vanished without a trace. Su Ming's expression instantly changed when he witnessed this scene. At this moment, he was shocked. He hadn't imagined that Yi Xian's strength would actually be so formidable. Obviously, it was just as he'd guessed. Yi Xian had really been left to fend for himself. How could an illegitimate child possess such terrifying strength at such a young age? In the sky, when Yuan Shi saw Yi Xian's sword intent, he frowned slightly. "Your sword intent." Yi Xian gazed at Master Yuan, and he didn't waste his breath at all. He suddenly charged into the sky with his sword in hand. Master Yuan frowned slightly, and then he suddenly slapped his palm down. Bang! An enormous palm swept down from the sky, and the powerful force it carried crushed everything in the world. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's sword arrived before him. Rumble! A world-shaking explosion suddenly resounded in the sky, and then an expanse of light erupted. Yi Xian returned to where he stood earlier, and he was just about to attack again. However, Master Yuan suddenly slapped his palm towards the right. Bang! The space on the right shattered into pieces, and then a spatial passageway appeared. In the next moment, numerous terrifying auras swept out from within the spatial passageway. Emissary Zhang's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene. "Young master, many terrifying experts are rushing over here." 7017K. Chapter 2407. What a terrifying expert. Yi Xian frowned when he heard that. An expert from the Yang clan? Damn it, is the Yang clan crazy? Could it be that they were all pigs with human heads? I'm the young master of the Yang clan. Moreover, I'm a real young master. Even if I'm a bastard, I'm not someone that these subordinates can kill. Do these people not use their brains? The auras in the teleportation formation grew more and more terrifying. Meanwhile, Su Ming suddenly said, Protect the young master. As soon as he finished speaking, he and the experts beside him came to stand by Yi Xian's side. He had chosen to side with Yi Xian because he was sure that Yi Xian was not a bastard and was not a bastard. Even if he was a bastard, he was a bastard who had awakened the insanity demon bloodline. Of course, he had no other choice. He could only choose Yi Xian and follow Yi Xian to the end. In the sky, Master Yuan looked down at Yi Xian with an ice-cold expression. Ha! At this moment, a burst of laughter came from the teleportation formation next to Yuanshi. In the next moment, a middle-aged man charged out. Rumble! As soon as the middle-aged man charged out, a terrifying aura swept down from the sky as if it was going to crush the heavens and the earth. Below, Yi Xian's expression was calm. He opened his palm and a sword intent shot into the sky. Boom! That terrifyingly powerful pressure was instantly crushed by this sword intent. The middle-aged man who had just charged out frowned slightly when he saw this, and a wisp of surprise flashed in his eyes. Interesting. Meanwhile, 12 people appeared behind the middle-aged man. All 12 of them were at the invincible god realm. Next to Yi Xian, Su Ming said, "Young master, these 12 people are not from the Yang clan." Not from the Yang clan. Yi Xian looked at Yuanshi and chuckled, "Looks like he's gotten help." Outside help. Yuanshi was silent. He had indeed found external help because he didn't dare to let the masters of the Yang clan kill Yi Xian. Those top masters were not easy to fool. Once they saw Yi Xian, not only would they not kill him, they might even help Yi Xian. Therefore, he could only look for external help and let outsiders kill Yi Xian. The middle-aged man beside Master Yuan sized up Yi Xian and smiled. "You're the illegitimate son of the Yang clan?" Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man smiled. "Do you know who I am?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know." The middle-aged man laughed. "I'm from the ancient Yong sect. Have you heard of me?" Ancient Yong sect. Yi Xian turned to look at Su Ming. Su Ming said in a low voice, "It's an ancient sect that specializes in killing people and robbing them. They're like mercenaries." Mercenaries? Yi Xian frowned, and he gazed at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man suddenly laughed ferociously. "Killing you is a huge business deal. You..." Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss! The space in front of Yi Xian split apart. In an instant, Yi Xian appeared in the universe. In the next moment, 4 afterimages appeared around the middle-aged man. Instant of invincibility. At the instant that Yi Xian executed this attack, the middle-aged man's pupils constricted. He didn't have the time to waste his breath. He suddenly flipped his right hand and slapped it down. Bang! A strand of energy that could obliterate the world suddenly erupted with him at the center. This. 4 rays of light suddenly crisscrossed and slashed around the middle-aged man. Everyone watched as the middle-aged man was slashed into pieces. An instant kill. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Yuanshi's eyes were filled with disbelief when he witnessed this scene. Needless to say, he was truly stunned at this moment. He'd been instantly killed. That middle-aged man was on the same level as him, but he'd been instantly killed with a single attack? At this moment, all the other experts from the ancient Yong sect were dumbstruck. Instantly killed with a single attack? On the other hand, everyone on Yi Xian's side was extremely excited. Especially Su Ming. At this moment he was truly excited. He hadn't imagined that Yi Xian's strength would actually be so formidable. At the same time, he felt quite fortunate that he'd surrendered quickly. Otherwise, not even his corpse would remain by now. Meanwhile, Yi Xian raised his head to look at Yuanshi, and he chuckled. "That's it." Yuanshi stared at Yi Xian. In the next moment, Yi Xian suddenly became ethereal. He intended to flee. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He opened his palm, and then the green profound sword in his hand shot into the sky. A ray of light tore through the sky and slashed straight at Yuanshi. However, when Yi Xian's sword arrived in front of Yuanshi, he'd vanished. He'd fled. Yi Xian instantly frowned when he saw this scene. If an expert of such a level wanted to flee, then he was unable to do anything. As if he'd thought of something, Yixian turned around to look at the experts from the ancient Yong sect, and their expressions instantly changed when they saw Yixian look over. Yixian's face was emotionless. Kill. As soon as Yixian finished speaking, Su Ming led all the experts behind him into the sky. In next to no time, the battle had begun. After their big brother was killed by Yixian, the morale of the experts from the ancient Yong sect had fallen to rock bottom. At this moment, they didn't have the will to continue fighting. Thus, they were crushed by Su Ming and the others as soon as the battle began. It wasn't long before all the experts from the ancient Yong sect were annihilated. Su Ming arrived before Yixian and said respectfully, "Young master." Yixian said calmly, "Where's that Yuan Shi?" Su Ming was shocked in his heart, and he hurriedly said, "He's in Ashcloud Mountain region." Yixian nodded. "Lead the way." Su Ming laughed bitterly. "Young master, I don't know where this Ashcloud Mountain region is." Yixian looked at Su Ming, and the latter hurriedly said, "I really don't know." Yixian turned around to look at Lan Qing. "Investigate." Lan Qing bowed respectfully. "Understood." As soon as he finished speaking, he left silently. On the battlefield, Yixian slowly closed his eyes. Ashcloud Mountain region. This time, he decided to deal with them in one go. Yixian chuckled lightly. "It's time to head to the Yang clan's headquarters." Emissary Zhang instantly became excited when he heard this. To the Yang clan's headquarters. This was something he dreamt of even in his dreams. Su Ming glanced at Yixian, and he was delighted in his heart as well. If I follow Yixian back to the Yang clan, then what would that be like? That would be like a trusted aide. When he thought up to here, Su Ming instantly grinned like a chrysanthemum. It wasn't long before Lan Qing appeared once more, and he bowed deeply. "Young Master Yi, I found the address. It's quite far." Yixian smiled. "It's fine. Let's go." Lan Qing nodded slightly, and then he clapped his hands. In next to no time, an enormous eternity warship tore through the sky and descended firmly in front of Yixian and the others. Lan Qing said respectfully, "Young Master Yi, this is an eternity warship. It can travel through the space of countless galaxies. Take this." Yixian nodded. He'd never been to Ashcloud Mountain region, so he was unable to use the green profound sword to travel there directly. After all of them ascended the eternity warship, Yixian turned around to look at Emissary Zhang. Emissary Zhang hesitated for a moment before he said, "Young master, the middle world needs people right now. I'll stay here." Even though he wanted to follow Yixian, Qing Qiu wasn't in the middle world right now. So, he could only choose to stay. A qualified subordinate had to share the worries of his superior. Yixian smiled slightly. "No need. Just follow me." Emissary Zhang was overjoyed when he heard this, and he said excitedly, "Understood." Even though he could become a universe god and dominate a region by staying in the middle world, he still wanted to follow Yixian to the Yang clan. Only by following Yixian could he have a sea of stars. After a short while, the Eternity warship started up, and it transformed into an afterimage that vanished into the distant starry sky. Universe of Gods. Qing Qiu returned to the headquarters of Guanchuan Academy. Even though there were many branches in Guanchuan Academy now, the headquarters was the Guanchuan Academy in the Universe of Gods. Qing Qiu went straight to Shu Xian. Shu Xian was the head of Guanchuan Academy's literature faculty, and his authority was only inferior to Qing Qiu and Yixian. However, he was obsessed with literature and didn't care about this at all. Qing Qiu smiled slightly. "Master." "Master." Qing Qiu had always respected Shu Xian. Even now, she still respected this old man in front of her. Shu Xian smiled. "Girl, now you." Saying this, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. He wasn't stupid. How could he not see the change in Qing Qiu? It could be said that she had become a different person. Qing Qiu smiled slightly. "I will always be Master's disciple." Shu Xian's heart warmed and he smiled lightly. "Let's get down to business." Qing Qiu nodded. "Now that the academy is getting bigger and bigger, and there are many branches, I don't have enough manpower. I want to transfer some people from the headquarters to the branches, and let them help to manage the literature faculty. Shu Xian nodded slightly. Sure. There are many people who can use them. Qing Qiu smiled. Good. Shu Xian suddenly said. How is young master now? Qing Qiu smiled. Very good. No one can hurt him. Shu Xian hesitated for a while, and then he said. Now that the academy is getting bigger and bigger, I'm really worried that the original intention of the academy will change. Sigh. Qing Qiu nodded. I know that, master. Don't worry, as long as I'm here, the academy will never change. Shu Xian glanced at Qing Qiu and sighed in a low voice. Girl, I can't see through you anymore. Qing Qiu smiled. Really? Shu Xian nodded. But I know you are still the same Qing Qiu. Qing Qiu nodded. I am in front of master. You are in front of master. Shu Xian shook his head with a smile. After chatting for a while, Qing Qiu left the hall. When she was about to leave, she suddenly turned around and saw a woman walking slowly not far away. The woman looked very young, less than 20 years old, and she was holding an ancient book. As if sensing something, the woman turned to look at Qing Qiu. When she saw Qing Qiu, the woman smiled. Miss Qing Qiu, nice to meet you. Qing Qiu smiled and asked, What's your name? The woman combed the hair that was fluttering behind her ear, and then she said, Gu Ran. 7017K. Chapter 2408. Gu Ran. Qing Qiu sized Gu Ran up, grinned, and then turned around and left. Gu Ran suddenly said, How is the dean? Qing Qiu stopped and turned to look at Gu Ran with a smile. Very good. Gu Ran nodded thoughtfully. Qing Qiu smiled and said, Good luck. Then, she turned and disappeared at the end of the horizon. Gu Ran looked at the horizon with eyes full of envy. She envied that Qing Qiu could always stay by Yi Xian's side. After a long time, the envy in Gu Ran's eyes turned into determination. Only when she was strong enough could she pursue the man she wanted. After a while, Gu Ran turned and left. Songyun Mountain. After Yuan Shi returned to Songyun Mountain, he immediately went to Tsang Hall to see Yun Tsang, the king of Songyun Mountain. Only Yuan Shi and Yun Tsang were in the hall. After a long time, Yun Tsang put down a secret report in his hand and looked at Yuan Shi. You want to live? Yuan Shi nodded. He knew he was in big trouble. Yi Xian might not be a bastard child, but a young master who was left to his own devices. Killing a young master who was left to his own devices, and the Yang family's young master at that. Yuan Shi didn't dare to think about it. Yun Tsang's expression was calm. Go to the judicial division. Hearing this, Yuan Shi's pupils shrank, and he said with a trembling voice, King. Yun Tsang shook his head. If you run, you won't have a chance to go to the judicial division to accept your punishment. Yuan Shi smiled bitterly. King, if I go to the judicial division, will I be able to live? Yun Tsang said calmly, If you go to the headquarters, you won't be able to live. Yuan Shi frowned. Go to the branch? Yun Tsang nodded. The branch of the punishment department is thousands of li away from here. I've already talked to the manager. Once you go there, he'll decide on your punishment and spare you from death. Once the punishment department decides on your punishment, even the young master has no right to interfere. If he interferes, it'll be the same as questioning the punishment department. At that time, it'll be a conflict between him and the punishment department. Hearing this, Yuan Shi became excited. The Judicial Division. This was an independent organization of the Yang clan, and it only listened to two people. One was the green-robed man, the sword master, and the other was the matriarch, Su Qingshi. Other than these two, the Judicial Division didn't need to listen to anyone else's orders. Yuan Shi understood the World King's meaning. If Yi Xian insisted on killing him, then that was the same as targeting the Punishment Division, and targeting the Punishment Division was the same as having a conflict with Matriarch Su Qingshi. Thinking of this, the corners of Yuan Shi's mouth lifted slightly. Yun Tsang said softly, If we can't resolve the conflict, then we'll shift the conflict and make it escalate. Master Yuan bowed deeply. This subordinate admires you. Yun Song said calmly, "He will be here soon. You should leave." Master Yuan bowed once more before leaving quietly. Yun Song picked up a secret document in front of him. After reading it for a long time, his expression gradually turned solemn. Suddenly, Yun Song put down the secret memorial and said, "Welcome, young master." His voice spread out like thunder. In the distance, a group of people appeared in the azure cloud mountain world. It was Yi Xian and the others. As soon as Yi Xian appeared in the lead, countless powerful divine senses locked onto him. Yi Xian's face was expressionless. He flicked his sleeve, and a strand of sword intent slashed out. In an instant, all the divine senses in the surroundings were slashed apart. At this moment, Yun Song appeared in front of Yi Xian. He bowed slightly. "Greetings, young lord. I'm Yun Song, king of the Zhangyun Mountain realm." Yi Xian looked at Yun Song. "Where's Yuanshi?" Yun Song grinned. "Young master, this person has committed a crime, and he surrendered himself to the punishment division." Yi Xian looked at Yun Song and didn't speak. After a short while, Yi Xian suddenly smiled. "I'll give you a chance. Bring him to see me in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn." Yun Song spoke solemnly, "Young master, he's in the punishment division. I have no right to interfere with it." Yi Xian opened his palm. In the next moment, the green profound sword suddenly trembled violently, and then Yi Xian instantly appeared in space. Yun Song's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene. "Activate the formation." Bang! In an instant, almost 1,000,000 beams of light shot into the sky from Azure Cloud City, and then they converged into Yun Song like a river. At the same time, Yun Song suddenly clenched his right fist, and then countless strands of faith energy instantly converged into his right arm. Yun Song roared furiously as he smashed his fist forward. This punch caused the entire Blue Cloud Mountain world to tremble, and then it cracked. The entire universe cracked apart. Meanwhile, four afterimages suddenly appeared around Yun Song, and then 4 rays of light crisscrossed around him. This. In an instant, countless rays of white light were obliterated. Meanwhile, Yi Xian returned to where he stood earlier and sheathed his sword. Crack. Suddenly, the sound of something cracking resounded, and then Yun Song's body shattered into pieces. However, his soul was still there. A golden bell floated above his soul, and it was exactly this golden bell and the grand formation from before that had protected his soul. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. Yun Song was a terrifying expert above the high god realm, and he was a world king. Yet this young master had destroyed his body with a single strike of his sword? Moreover, it was under the circumstances that Yun Song had activated the grand formation. It was too terrifying. Yun Song gazed at Yi Xian, and he was just about to speak when Yi Xian's sword suddenly vanished. Yun Song's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene, and then he clenched his right fist and smashed it forward. A strand of terrifying energy of the soul swept out. Even though Yun Song's body was gone, his strength was still terrifying. However, his pupils constricted when his fist came into contact with Yi Xian's green profound sword. He wanted to stop, but it was too late. Yi Xian's green profound sword pierced the center of Yun Song's forehead. Bang! Everyone watched as the green profound sword nailed Yun Song's soul to the spot. Deathly silence filled the surroundings. Gone? Right at this moment, a group of experts appeared around Yun Song, and they gazed vigilantly at Yi Xian. Yun Song's eyes were filled with disbelief as he gazed at Yi Xian. What sword technique is that? Yi Xian gazed at Yun Song. Was it Master Yuan's idea to kill me, or was it yours? Yun Song stared fixedly at Yi Xian in silence. Yi Xian chuckled. I'm so stupid. Master Yuan is clearly your subordinate. How would he dare to do it without your permission? As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his right fist. The green profound sword trembled violently. Bang! Yun Song's soul was directly absorbed by the green profound sword. His soul was obliterated. Su Ming, who stood behind Yi Xian, broke out in a cold sweat when he witnessed this scene. Damn it! This young master was simply too abnormal. I actually dared to kill him in the past. Meanwhile, one of the old men from Yun Song's group spoke furiously, Young master, even if the world king has made a mistake, you have no right to kill him. You should hand him over to the punishment division. You. Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at the old man. I won't. The old man was astounded. Yi Xian glanced at the experts in the surroundings, and then he said, I suppose all of you have a part in trying to kill me. As he spoke, the green profound sword in his grasp suddenly started trembling violently. The old man's expression changed drastically when he witnessed this scene, and he hurriedly said, Young master, I had no part in it. It was the world king's decision. Yi Xian remained expressionless and didn't speak a word. Meanwhile, Emissary Zhang spoke furiously, Then why aren't you kneeling down? Kneeling? The old man was stunned, and then he hurriedly knelt down. The experts behind him knelt down as well. All of them submitted. Yi Xian glanced at them, and then he turned to look at Emissary Zhang. From this moment onward, you're the world king of this world, and you're in full control of this world. Emissary Zhang was stunned for a moment, and then he hurriedly said, Yes. Yi Xian suddenly said, How do I get to the punishment division? The old man who stood before Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, It's 500,000 kilometers to the north. Yi Xian nodded, To the punishment division. The old man hurriedly said, Young master, I have something to say. I wonder if you're willing to listen? Yi Xian smiled, Go ahead. The old man spoke solemnly, Young master, the punishment division is a special organization, and it's independent from the various departments. Moreover, they only listen to Madame Su and the sword master. Even the eldest young miss doesn't have the right to interfere with the punishment division. So, if you head to the punishment division, then you might enter into conflict with them. Once that happens. He didn't continue at this point. Yi Xian grinned, You're afraid that I'll enter into conflict with Auntie Su? The old man nodded. Madame Su. She was like a god in the Yang clan, and it could be said that Madame Su's status in the Yang clan far surpassed the sword master. Moreover, the entire Yang clan could be said to have been founded by Madame Su, and that was why so many people had chosen to support Yang Yanxua. If Yi Xian entered into conflict with the punishment division, then it would be equivalent to entering into conflict with Madame Su. Yi Xian suddenly chuckled, I definitely respect Auntie Su, and I believe that she didn't order her subordinates to target me. But, as he spoke, he shook his head and smiled, I have no intention of targeting anyone. All I know is that I will definitely kill those who want me dead. No one can save them. The old man smiled bitterly. Yi Xian smiled, and then he turned around and vanished into the depths of the starry sky. Emissary Zhang hurriedly followed him when he saw this. He didn't care who Yi Xian was going against, all he knew was that he had to follow Yi Xian closely. Su Ming hesitated for a moment when he saw Emissary Zhang follow them, and then he gritted his teeth and followed them immediately. In any case, there was no way out. Only by following Yi Xian could they have a future. The old man hesitated. At this moment, someone suddenly said, Old Gu, should we go with them? After a moment of silence, Old Gu shook his head. The man said solemnly, Now is the best time for us to show our loyalty. If we lose this opportunity, Old Gu said in a deep voice, This young master is too unyielding. He doesn't know how to endure. If he goes against Mistress Su like this, he won't have a good time. As he spoke, he looked towards the horizon and said softly, This young master has overlooked something. He's the young master of the Yang clan, and the Yang clan belongs to Matriarch Su. It can be said that with a single word from Matriarch Su, he'll instantly lose his identity as the young master. And without this identity, what does he count as? With that, he shook his head. Nothing. 7017K. Chapter 2409. Nothing at all. The person next to the old man was silent. Yi Xian was indeed a genius, and he was extremely powerful. However, if not for the fact that he was the Yang clan's young prince, Yi Xian would be nothing in front of the entire Yang clan. As Old Gu had said, nothing at all. Old Gu sighed again. I suggested to him just now to see if the young lord could see the big picture. Unfortunately, he shook his head. He's just a hot-blooded young man who only knows how to be brave. His eyes flashed with disappointment. Let's wait and see. He will get himself into trouble at the punishment department. He will lose his identity as the young lord and might even be expelled from the Yang clan. Deep in the starry sky, Su Ming hesitated for a while and said, "Young lord, the punishment department is not simple." Yi Xian said with a smile, "How so?" Su Ming said in a deep voice, "They are in charge of the Yang clan's punishment department and are independent of all departments. They only listen to Mistress Su's orders. They might not give you face." Yi Xian blinked. "I don't need them to give me face." Su Ming was silent. At this moment he suddenly felt a little panicky. What was the young lord trying to do? Was he going to destroy the Yang clan? Thinking of this, Su Ming broke out in a cold sweat. To be honest, he wanted to run away because he realized that the young lord was going to destroy everything. Emissary Zhang stood respectfully next to Yi Xian. He was not panicking at all. Anyway, he had already bet everything he had on Yi Xian. He would either live a life of luxury and wealth or die and vanish from the world. He had no regrets. This was his choice. Not long after, Yi Xian and the rest arrived at the punishment department. The punishment department was located on a tall mountain. The entire place was eerie like a ghost palace. One look at it was terrifying. Su Ming's face turned solemn when he saw the punishment department. In fact, he had only heard of the punishment department. He had never come into contact with it because his rank was too low. In the entire Yang clan, the judicial department was extremely mysterious. It could be said that they were the secret guards of the Son of Heaven, and had the terrifying power to act first and report later. Yi Xian looked down at the judicial division and smiled. He opened his palm and a beam of sword light shot into the sky. Buzz! A sword cry shook the heavens and earth. However, there was no reaction from the punishment division below. At the sight of this, Emissary Zhang's face darkened. "Young master, let's do it." The judicial department definitely knew about the arrival of Yi Xian and the others, but they didn't react at all. There was only one explanation, and that was to give Yi Xian a show of strength. "Young master?" The judicial division only answers to Mistress Su. Upon hearing Emissary Zhang's words, Yi Xian laughed heartily. In the next moment, he opened his palm and the Qingxian sword appeared in his hand. He looked at the judicial division below and said, "I, Yi Xian, am not an unreasonable person. I have no enmity with the judicial division, so I really do not wish to kill. Today, I'm only here to kill Master Yuan alone." There was still no response from the judicial division. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up into a sinister smile. In the next moment, his eyes instantly turned blood red. In an instant, a terrifying bloodline power shot into the sky. In an instant, the entire starry sky was like a sea of blood. It was extremely terrifying. The demonic madness bloodline. The expressions of Su Ming and the others changed drastically. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. In front of them, the old man looked at Yi Xian with a trace of solemnity in his eyes. "The demonic madness bloodline, you?" Yi Xian suddenly burst into laughter. "Cut the crap." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. Under everyone's gazes, the old man's pupils suddenly shrank. Before he could react, his head flew out with a pillar of blood. Without wasting any time, Yi Xian directly charged towards the judicial division below. At the same time, a monstrous murderous intent and vicious aura enveloped the entire judicial division. Under the shroud of the murderous intent and vicious aura, the expressions of the experts in the judicial division changed drastically. In front of Yi Xian, the old man quickly said, "Young master, the judicial division is independent from all other departments. We only listen to the sword master and Mistress Su." At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. This time, he did not use instant of invincibility. Instead, he directly activated all his sword intent. After merging with the power of faith of the human spirit, His human world sword intent had reached an extremely terrifying level. However, he had never tested its power. At this moment, he unleashed his human world sword intent to the extreme. With the enhancement of the power of the bloodline, his human world sword intent had become even more terrifying. At the moment Yi Xian attacked with his sword, the old man was instantly shocked. In the face of Yi Xian's terrifying attack, he did not dare to underestimate or be careless at all, nor did he dodge. Because Yi Xian's sword was too fast, and he could not dodge at all. The old man suddenly charged forward. As he charged, countless afterimages overlapped with each other. At the same time, the space in the surroundings directly shattered. A ray of black light directly collided with Yi Xian's terrifying attack. Bang! Suddenly, a ray of sword light shattered, and countless afterimages were destroyed. At the same time, the old man directly retreated explosively for tens of thousands of meters. As soon as he stopped, an afterimage suddenly appeared behind him. The afterimage was Yi Xian, and a sword had suddenly stabbed into the old man's forehead. That sword was the green profound sword. It was an instant kill. At the sight of this, Emissary Zhang was extremely shocked. He realized that Yi Xian's strength had become stronger again. How ridiculous! Su Ming's expression was extremely solemn as well. Yi Xian's strength was truly terrifying. That old man was at the paramount godly realm, yet Yi Xian had killed him as easily as if he was slaughtering a chicken. It was too terrifying. At this moment, he was even more certain that this young master had definitely been personally fostered by the sword master. When he thought up to this point, the panic he felt from before instantly vanished. In the distance, the old man's eyes opened wide behind Yi Xian, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He had never expected that he would be instantly killed just like that. The old man hurriedly spoke when he sensed that his soul was disappearing swiftly. "Young master, you can't do that. Meanwhile, the green profound sword trembled violently and completely absorbed the old man's soul. Both his soul and soul were destroyed. Emissary Zhang shook his head and sighed. This old man's IQ is worrying. If he were to kneel down and beg for mercy now, he might still be able to live. He knew Yi Xian's character well. Yi Xian was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. As long as one behaved properly and did not intentionally provoke Yi Xian, then Yi Xian would be very easy to get along with. Yi Xian was really generous to his own people. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the Qingxian sword returned to his hand. He looked down at the judicial department below. At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Xian. The middle-aged man wore a long black robe, and his expression was cold. It was holding a long spear. At the same time, countless powerful auras appeared in the surroundings, and all of them locked onto Yi Xian. Emissary Zhang sighed softly when he saw this. At this moment, his heart was filled with discomfort. How did these pigs get to where they are now? Don't they understand the situation? This young master is really amazing. This young master is so monstrous and terrifying. He was definitely personally fostered by the sword master. Yet now, these fellows are actually targeting Yi Xian. Do they really intend to kill Yi Xian? But what about after they kill Yi Xian? As far as Emissary Zhang was concerned, surrendering was the right thing to do. The middle-aged man gazed at Yi Xian with an expressionless face, and he was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly raised his sword. The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly. His right hand shook, and the spear in his hand stabbed forward. The space in front of the middle-aged man was torn apart, and the spear slashed at Yi Xian's green profound sword like a bolt of lightning. Bang! The middle-aged man's pupils constricted as soon as the spear and sword collided, because he noticed that the spear in his hand had split apart, and a ray of sword light had arrived before his forehead in the next moment. However, the middle-aged man's expression was unusually calm at this moment. Yi Xian stabbed forward with his sword, but it missed because the middle-aged man had vanished on the spot. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed down with his sword. Bang! A strand of terrifying force erupted, and a figure retreated explosively 30 kilometers away in front of Yi Xian. It was the middle-aged man. After the middle-aged man stopped moving, his expression changed drastically because a ray of blood-red light had slashed down from above him. The middle-aged man roared furiously, "Attack!" As soon as he finished speaking, over 10 terrifying auras charged towards Yixian. Meanwhile, Emissary Zhang spoke ferociously from afar, "Kill!" As soon as he spoke, he charged forward with Su Ming and the others. At the instant that Yi Xian's sword descended, the middle-aged man was blasted over 30 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, his body was instantly obliterated, and only his soul remained. Meanwhile, Yi Xian slashed down once more. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted to the size of needles when he saw this attack. At this moment, he'd given up on resisting, because he knew that he who only had his soul remaining was utterly incapable of resisting such a terrifying attack from Yi Xian. As expected, Yi Xian's sword pierced through the center of the middle-aged man's forehead, and then it nailed his soul to the spot. Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of the middle-aged man. He was just about to attack when a terrifying aura suddenly charged up from within the punishment hall, and then a powerful pressure swept towards Yi Xian. At this moment, the entire starry sky seethed while countless strands of space were destroyed. Emissary Zhang suddenly roared furiously when he witnessed this scene. "Young master, watch out!" Yi Xian turned around and opened his palm. In an instant, countless strands of sword intent surged out and resisted that terrifying aura. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man by Yi Xian's side spoke with a trembling voice, "Manager, save me." Yi Xian suddenly swung his sword with a flip of his hand. The middle-aged man's soul was instantly obliterated. The middle-aged man was speechless. Yi Xian gazed at the middle-aged man in the distance, and he grinned ferociously. "Come, all of you can summon your ancestors." The others were speechless. Chapter 24:10. Summon the Ancestor? Emissary Zhang and the others wore strange expressions. Summon the father to beat the son? The Punishment Division did not have the guts to do so. The Punishment Division manager glared at Yi Xian. "The Punishment Division is independent from all other organizations. How dare you?" Emissary Zhang suddenly shouted. "No matter how high the position of the Punishment Division is it higher than the Young Lord's? Or you are just subordinates of the Yang clan, and the Young Lord is the Yang clan's master. What, you want to be above the master?" The Punishment Division manager glanced at Emissary Zhang. "We only listen to Mistress Su. Even the Young Lord has no right to interfere with the Punishment Division." Emissary Zhang nodded. "If that's the case, then you can fight the Young Lord." The head of the Punishment Division frowned slightly. At this moment, Yi Xian's body in the distance suddenly became illusory. Seeing this scene, the head of the Punishment Division's expression changed drastically, and a ferocious glint flashed in his eyes. Formation. Against Yi Xian, he did not dare to be careless. Yi Xian had killed the old man too easily. As soon as the Disciplinary Division manager's voice fell, 4 beams of black light suddenly shot up into the sky from the Disciplinary Division below. In the next moment, a huge black circular array formation quietly appeared above the head of the Disciplinary Division manager. In the next moment, terrifying black thunderbolts directly fell in a straight line. In the end, these black thunderbolts converged into a divine thunderbolt that was tens of thousands of feet long. Boom! At this moment, the entire starry sky boiled. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the azure sword in his hand suddenly turned into a sword ray that shot up into the sky. He did not use Instant of Invincibility. He wanted to see if he could easily kill these peerless gods without using Instant of Invincibility. When the azure sword shot up into the sky was directly torn apart. Boom! A sword ray suddenly slashed at the divine lightning. Rumble! The entire starry sky was annihilated. The divine lightning cracked, but it was not completely annihilated. Yi Xian was just about to attack again when the manager suddenly vanished on the spot, and then an afterimage tore through the surroundings. In the distance, Yi Xian frowned slightly. He flicked his sleeve and a wave of sword intent surged out. Rumble! The manager was forced to retreat by the sword intent. The manager was shocked. What kind of sword intent is this? Yi Xian didn't waste any time. He disappeared from where he was, and in the next moment, countless sword lights slashed at the manager. A vicious glint flashed across the chief's eyes as he shouted, "Array!" Boom! Suddenly, a blood-red chain shot into the sky from the punishment division. It was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it had arrived in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned and slashed down with his sword. Rumble! A wave of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian was sent flying hundreds of thousands of feet away. However, the blood-red chain was completely unharmed. Because it wasn't the azure sword, he hadn't been able to destroy the chain. At this moment, his azure sword was being held back by the divine lightning. At this moment, the blood-red chain suddenly turned into a streak of blood-red light and rushed towards Yi Xian. A huge rift had been torn open in the space before Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly raised his right hand. The human spirit, on the tip of the azure sword, trembled violently, and then a ray of golden light shot into the sky. Rumble! The divine lightning in the sky shattered. In the next moment, the azure sword returned to Yi Xian's hand, and Yi Xian slashed at it. Bang! Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian shattered the blood-red chain with a single slash of his sword. Seeing this, the chief's pupils shrank. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. A ray of sword light appeared in front of the manager. It was as swift as a bolt of lightning. A vicious glint flashed through the manager's eyes. He charged forward and punched forward. The punch carried a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. The power instantly swept out. Rumble! An explosion resounded, and the manager was blasted thousands of meters away by Yi Xian's attack. As soon as he stopped moving, a ray of sword light pierced through his forehead. At this moment, Yi Xian had appeared behind him. The surroundings suddenly fell deathly silent. A complete defeat. The experts of the punishment division had extremely unsightly expressions on their faces. They hadn't expected their manager to be defeated just like that. Of course, they were even more furious that this young master actually dared to make a move against the punishment division. One must know that for so many years, no matter who it was, everyone had to give the punishment division face. Yet now, Yi Xian had actually dared to kill a member of the punishment division. Meanwhile, someone suddenly said, "Call for reinforcements. Call for reinforcements." As soon as the voice resounded, a voice transmission talisman suddenly shot out and vanished into the depths of the starry sky. Yi Xian turned to look at the expert of the punishment division who spoke. The expert said fiercely, "Even if you're the young master, you can't interfere with the punishment division. The punishment division only hiss." Before the expert could finish speaking, a sword pierced through his forehead. Boom! The expert's body shook violently, and then he was obliterated. Everyone. Yi Xian turned to look at the manager who hadn't completely vanished. At this moment, the manager was completely dumbfounded. He hadn't expected the young master to be so terrifying, and he hadn't expected the young master to not give him any face at all. Rage. The experts of the punishment division didn't fear, only rage. No one had ever disrespected the punishment division like this. Emissary Zhang sighed softly in his heart when he saw the anger on the experts' faces. These people were used to being flattered. They'd even forgotten who they were. If a person didn't know his place, then he wouldn't be far from death. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned his head to look at the powerhouses of the punishment division. When they saw Yi Xian looking at them, their expressions changed drastically. At this moment, they finally panicked. The young master before them wasn't just a young master, he possessed terrifying strength as well. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. The manager was instantly obliterated by a ray of light, but Yi Xian didn't stop and charged towards the experts of the punishment division. When they saw Yi Xian charging towards them, the expressions of those strong men from the judicial department changed drastically. How could they resist him? Suddenly, space split apart in the distant sky, and then an old man appeared there. The old man grabbed towards the distance with his right hand. Bang! A mysterious force locked onto Yi Xian who was about to attack. A cage. Yi Xian frowned slightly, and then he turned around and slashed with his sword. The cage was instantly blasted open by this strike of his sword. Yi Xian gazed at the old man. The old man wore a black robe, and there was a small, town, character embroidered on his chest. The punishment division. The old man hesitated for a moment when he saw Yi Xian, and then he bowed slightly. Young master. Young master. Yi Xian gazed at the old man and remained silent. The old man spoke in a low voice. Young master, I'm the head commander of the punishment division, Elder Gu Shi. A head commander. The expressions of the experts of the punishment division changed violently, and they hurriedly knelt down and bowed. The head commander was the core circle of the Yang clan. In the Yang clan, a head commander of such a level was an extraordinary big shot. Su Ming's expression gradually became solemn as well. The head commander is here. It's finally not some small fry. Obviously, the higher-ups of the Yang clan were aware of Yi Xian's existence. Yi Xian's expression was calm, and then, the old man hesitated for a moment and said, Young master, I understand everything. I'll give young master an explanation for this. Yi Xian chuckled, An explanation? What kind of explanation do you want? The old man spoke in a low voice, Execute Master Yuan immediately. Execute him immediately. Obviously, he was giving Yi Xian face. Since the matter had developed to this point, the punishment division naturally had to give Yi Xian face. Otherwise, would they really have to kill Yi Xian if they were to continue fighting? So, the punishment division had decided to compromise. After all, he was the young master. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly shook his head and sighed, It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All the others gazed at Yi Xian when they heard this. Yi Xian chuckled, After this incident, I've come to understand something. The Yang clan has never taken me to be one of their own. Since it's like that, then why should I insist on staying in the Yang clan? As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and the ring that the green-clothed man had given him floated out slowly. From this moment onward, I'm not a member of the Yang clan anymore. The expressions of Su Ming and the others instantly changed violently when they heard this. He intends to give up his status as the young master of the Yang clan? Gu Shi's expression changed as well. He was just about to say something when Yi Xian turned around and left. Emissary Zhang didn't hesitate to follow Qin Shi. Right at this moment, the space in the distance suddenly split apart, and then a peerlessly beautiful woman walked out slowly from within it. Gu Shi's expression instantly changed violently when he saw this peerlessly beautiful woman, and he hurriedly knelt down and said, Matriarch Su. Matriarch Su Qingshi. Matriarch? Su Ming and the others instantly felt weak in the knees when they heard this form of address, and they immediately knelt down. She was the actual controller of the Yang clan. An old man with a sword in his hand was following behind Su Qingshi, and his aura was deep like an ocean and extremely terrifying. Yi Xian stopped moving, and then he turned around to gaze at Su Qingshi. At this moment his bloodline was still in a state of activation. Su Qingshi gazed at Yi Xian in silence. Yi Xian chuckled, Aunt Su, you should have known about all of this, right? Su Qingshi shook her head slightly. It was a misunderstanding, and you could have resolved it in a better way. However, you just had to use the most extreme method. After tempering yourself for so many years in the outside world, your character is still just like your father. You're still so extreme. Yi Xian looked Su Qingshi in the eyes and said, The Yang clan has taken me to be an illegitimate child. Then allow me to ask you, Aunt Su, am I an illegitimate child? Su Qingshi's beautiful brows knit together slightly. Yi Xian suddenly roared furiously, Am I an illegitimate child? Apart from anger, there was also a tinge of grievance in this roar. Seeing Yi Xian's roar, the old man with the sword behind Su Qingshi frowned slightly. He took a step forward, and a terrifying aura shrouded Yi Xian. Be more polite when talking to the mistress. At this moment, a sword suddenly appeared on the scene. The old man's pupils constricted, and in the next moment, his head was sent flying. He was instantly killed. In the next moment, a woman in a plain dress appeared in front of Su Qingshi. She looked straight at Su Qingshi, I'm talking to you, do you need to be more polite? P.S. Early outburst. Requesting for votes. Everyone can follow me on TikTok, 17486888249. I'll be doing a live broadcast at 7 p.m. If everyone has time, you can come and take a look at my handsome face. At the same time, I'll pick some readers to send Sword Domain and Sword Supreme physical books. I remember it's 7 p.m. Those who have tickets can vote for me. I'd like to thank some readers who watched some videos to increase my income, especially tomato readers. Thank you for watching the free video, Electricity for Love, to increase my income. Thank you. I'd also like to thank all the readers for their donations and support, and Zongheng readers, especially those who spent money to read my books. Your support is my greatest motivation. I might be a water drinker, but I won't always be a water drinker. Tonight at 7 p.m., everyone, let's have a chat. I'm shameless, you guys can do whatever you want. TikTok, 17486888249. Chapter 2411. The Woman in a Plain Dress. Tianming. Su Qingshir's brows instantly knit together when she saw the woman in a plain dress. She hadn't expected that this woman would actually come here. She knew that this woman was unreasonable and protective of her older brother. This is going to be troublesome. Su Qingshir thought for a moment and was about to speak. Suddenly, space split apart in the distance, and then a man in green clothes walked out slowly. The Sword Master. Su Qingshir's expression grew even more unsightly when she saw the Sword Master. Now that these two extremes had met, the situation had become rather complicated. The Sword Master smiled as he gazed at the woman in a plain dress. He was about to speak when Su Qingshir suddenly walked over to the man in green clothes, took his hand, and shook her head. She knew that a battle would definitely occur if they were to go against each other. If they were to fight right now, then it would simply be a calamity. Because no matter if it was the current universe or the boundless universe, it wouldn't be able to endure their terrifying strength. The woman in a plain dress turned around to look at the man in green clothes. In the next moment, she opened her palm, and the walking sword appeared in her grasp. Meanwhile, Yi Xian walked over to her side, took her hand and grinned. Forget it. The woman in a plain dress shook her head. Big brother, listen to me this time. The Yang clan? Who do they think they are? As soon as she finished speaking, the walking sword in her hand suddenly flew out and slashed towards the man in green clothes. They attacked. The man's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Heavenrent. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically when he saw them suddenly attack. He immediately placed emissary Zhang, Su Ming, and the others into Xiao Ta's body. At the same time, he retreated behind the woman in a plain dress. Bang! All of a sudden, two beams of sword light burst forth. Rumble! In an instant, millions of stars were obliterated with the two of them at the center. Moreover, their residual energy hadn't dispersed just like that, and it was still spreading towards the surroundings at a terrifying speed. Based on its speed, it would only take a few breaths of time at most for it to destroy the entire universe or even the boundless universe. Just as the current universe was about to collapse completely, a mysterious force suddenly appeared in the current universe. With the appearance of this mysterious force, the power of the woman in the plain dress and the man in green was instantly blocked and stopped spreading. But it didn't take long for that mysterious power to shatter and be annihilated. Meanwhile, a black character suddenly appeared in an unknown expanse of the starry sky. As soon as this character appeared, a powerful force obstructed the remaining force of the attacks from the green-clothed man and woman. Not long after, that word suddenly split open. At this moment, a hand suddenly grabbed that word. In the next moment, an ancient book suddenly appeared in this starry sky. Rumble! With the appearance of this ancient book, a terrifying force forcefully blocked the remaining power of the woman in the plain dress and the man in the green robe. However, he could only block it, not eliminate it. In the starry sky, the plain-dressed woman and the green-robed man stood with their swords. The plain-dressed woman's face was cold, and there was not a trace of emotion in her eyes. The green-robed man gripped his sword tightly in his right hand. His sword was turning red bit by bit. Meanwhile, a phantom suddenly appeared not too far away from the two of them. As soon as this phantom appeared, the Daoist on Yixian's waist started trembling slightly. The phantom suddenly spoke softly, "If the two of you attack again, this current universe will immediately collapse, and the boundless universe will immediately collapse as well. A myriad of living beings will die because of the two of you." The plain-dressed woman turned around and glanced coldly at the phantom. The phantom said, "Don't look at me. If the two of you really want to fight, then I can't stop it. But if the two of you really fight now, have you thought about him?" As he spoke, he looked at Yixian. The plain-dressed woman fell silent for a moment, and then she looked at the man in green with a ferocious expression. "If it wasn't for my brother, then I would slaughter your Yang clan in front of you right now. Let's see what you can do then." As she spoke, she turned to look at Su Qingsher and spoke disdainfully. "Yang clan? What a piece of trash. Does my brother need something rare?" As she finished speaking, she turned around and pulled Yixian's hand as she walked towards the distance. After the plain-dressed woman left with Yixian, Su Qingsher turned to look at the man in green and said softly, "I'm sorry. I just wanted to train him, but I didn't expect things to turn out like this." The man in green shook his head. "This child's character is like mine, and he's very extreme most of the time." Su Qingsher nodded. "It should be the words illegitimate child that hurt him." As she spoke, she sighed softly. Illegitimate child. She had overlooked an important thing, and that was, Yixian hadn't been recognized by the Yang clan until now. And Yixian, who had always been outside, had a grudge against the man in green. Now that he was treated like this by the Yang clan, he was naturally angry. Under such circumstances, the people of the Yang clan still targeted him, so he was naturally angry. As if she thought of something, Su Qingsher looked at the man in green and said again, "I'm sorry. I didn't handle this matter well." The man in green took Su Qingsher's hand and said softly, "With this kid's character, I'm afraid he won't return to the Yang clan." Su Qingsher fell silent. She was able to sense that Yi Xian's character was very similar to the man in green, and they were both extreme most of the time. Once he chose to leave the Yang clan, then he would definitely not return. The man in green suddenly turned around to gaze at the figure in the distance, and he didn't speak. The figure remained silent for a moment before he said, "It isn't as simple as you think." The man in green fell silent. The figure sighed softly. "The development of the matter has completely exceeded my control. All I can say is that all of you take care of yourselves. As for whether the outcome of the story is sad or happy, it's all in your own hands." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure gradually became ethereal, and it didn't take long for him to vanish completely. The man in green fell silent for a moment before he said, "Qingsher, I'll be leaving." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. Su Qingsher remained silent for a long time on the spot before she said, "Send my order." From this moment onward, Yixian is the young master of the Yang clan. Seeing him is like seeing the sword master. The expressions of Gu Shi and the others instantly changed violently when they heard this. Seeing him is like seeing the sword master. Obviously, Yixian was the next patriarch of the Yang clan. Su Qingsher sighed softly, "That pair of father and son." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. After the man in green and the woman in a plain dress collided with each other, they directly damaged the quintessence of the entire universe. It could be said that the current universe had suffered a huge blow to its vitality. If Daoist's master hadn't forcefully interfered, then the entire universe would have probably been obliterated by now. Their strength was truly too terrifying. Even though Daoist's master had protected this universe, it had still been heavily damaged, and its vitality had been damaged. Qing-er held Yixian's hand as they walked slowly through the starry sky. Yixian smiled. "Qing-er, what are you doing here?" Qing-er spoke softly. "I missed you." Yixian grinned. "Me too." As he spoke, he held Qing-er's hand tightly. Qing-er turned to look at Yixian. "Brother, are you tired of fighting alone?" Yixian shook his head. "Not at all." Qing fell silent. Yi Xian smiled. I know what you mean, Qing, but I think it's good this way. I can slowly fight on my own. If I rely on you for everything, then I'll never be able to surpass you. Qing wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Are you trying to say that no matter how hard I work, I won't be able to surpass you? Shook her head. Brother, do you know what I discovered? Yi Xian was curious. What did you discover? Qing looked up at the starry sky and spoke softly. A person who writes the fate of others, his fate is also being written by others. Yi Xian was puzzled. Qing, what do you mean? Qing shook her head, but didn't speak. Yi Xian, Qing suddenly stopped, her hands wrapped around Yi Xian's waist, and then leaned her head on Yi Xian's chest. Her eyes slowly closed, a charming smile appeared on her face. Yi Xian said softly, said, if stories have an ending, I hope it's like this. Yi Xian was silent for a moment, and asked in his mind, Bye bro, did something happen? The Daoist said, I don't know. Yi Xian frowned and was about to speak, but the Daoist suddenly said, Brother, how would I know about her? Anyway, as long as nothing happens to you, she'll be fine, but if something happens to you, The Daoist didn't continue. Over the past few days, it had finally come to understand one thing. That was, Destiny's happiness and anger depended entirely on Yi Xian. She couldn't bear to see Yi Xian suffer even the slightest grievance. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, Qing, tell me, did you discover something again? Qing said softly, It's nothing, brother, you just need to live well, I'll take care of everything. Yi Xian, Qing, suddenly smiled, Brother, I want to go shopping with you, can I? Yi Xian collected his thoughts and smiled, Where? Blinked her eyes. Anywhere is fine. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then said, I want to go to Arcana territory. Was a little curious, Arcana territory? Yi Xian nodded and said seriously, We visited some mysterious secret realms before. They were very dangerous, so I want to show you around the secret realms. Her smiled, Sure. Yi Xian laughed, and he suddenly turned to look into the distance, Lan Qing. As soon as he finished speaking, the space not far away was suddenly torn apart. The next moment, Lan Qing showed up in front of Yi Xian and his sister. Lan Qing bowed respectfully, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled, Help me investigate where there are Arcana territories or ruins, I want to go shopping. Lan Qing hesitated, and then said, Arcana territory or ruins? Yi Xian nodded, Yes. Lan Qing said solemnly, Young Master Yi, I know something about Daoist, but some places are extremely dangerous. Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand, and said heroically, The more dangerous the better, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. Lan Qing. 7017K. Chapter 2412. The Secret Area Ruins. In this vast universe, there were many unknown regions. Some of these regions were the cave ruins of ancient almighty figures, some were special regions, and some were the ruins of ancient sects. These cave ruins were usually extremely dangerous. Of course, at the same time, there were also countless opportunities. Yi Xian held Qing's hand and slowly walked towards the distant starry sky. In the Milky Way, the brother and sister held hands, and the starry sky around them was deep and distant. Yi Xian suddenly said, Qing, why are you here all of a sudden? Is there something wrong? He was quite surprised by Qing's sudden appearance. He still said, I missed you. I missed you. Yi Xian tightened his grip on Qing's hand, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. His heart was as sweet as honey. Qing's kindness to him was the purest in the world. Having a sister like this was a blessing in this life. At this moment, Lan Qing suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, and he bowed deeply to Yi Xian and said, Young Master Yi, there are two ruins, the myriad tombs and the heaven's burial grounds. Yi Xian smiled, Give me the address. Lan Qing hesitated for a moment, and then he bowed deeply, Young Master Yi, forgive me for speaking out of turn. These two places are unimaginably dangerous. Yi Xian said seriously, I'm not afraid. Lan Qing smiled bitterly, young Master Yi, let me tell you something, and you'll know how terrifying these two places are. It's said that a group of extremely terrifying ancient experts are buried in the myriad tombs. According to the investigation of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, this place might be from the legendary Myriad Race era. The Myriad Race era. Yi Xian frowned slightly. You know about the Myriad Race era? He knew that those sages were from the legendary Myriad Race era. Lan Qing shook his head. I don't know. It's just that the pavilion master mentioned that this was an extremely brilliant era, and there were countless outstanding people in that era. It can be said that this era of the myriad races is the most advanced era in the history of our current universe. As he spoke, he smiled. In the words of the pavilion master, the era of the myriad races is the leader of countless eras. The leader of the era. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Lan Qing said seriously, young Master Yi, the myriad tombs divine realm and the heavens burial ground might both be from the era of the myriad races. As far as I know, the Yang clan once had experts explore these two places, but they never came back. Yi Xian smiled and said, I understand. If I was alone, I definitely wouldn't go, but I'm not alone. As he spoke, he held Qing'er's hand and waved it. He smiled and said, I'll go with my sister. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Qing'er's lips curled into a smile that made the universe pale in comparison. Lan Qing glanced at the plainly dressed woman. The plainly dressed woman was like an ordinary person. She stood there without the slightest bit of aura. She was simply too ordinary. Of course, Lan Qing didn't really think that the woman in front of him was ordinary. Lan Qing bowed slightly, then took out 2 scrolls and handed them to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is the address. Yi Xian took the 2 scrolls and said with a smile, Thank you. As he spoke, he opened one of the scrolls. He glanced at it, then turned to look at Qing. Let's go. Qing'er nodded, then disappeared into the distant end of the starry sky with Yi Xian. Amidst the boundless starry sky, Yi Xian flew on his sword. Qing'er was by his side. Qing'er didn't fly on her sword. She simply held Yi Xian's hand with a faint smile on her face. Yi Xian was a little curious. Qing'er, you fought with my father with your sword earlier, and that sword attack almost destroyed the entire universe and the boundless universe. Why are your swords so powerful? Qing'er was silent. Yi Xian blinked. Is it hard to explain? Qing'er turned to look at Yi Xian. I'm thinking how to simplify a complicated question so that you can understand it. Yi Xian's expression froze. Qing'er said softly, Within the realm, all are ants. Outside the realm, all are ants. A true expert isn't bound by anything. He understands everything and transcends everything. She turned to look at Yi Xian. If you ask me how strong I am, I can't answer you. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Qing'er smiled. Because I don't know how strong I am. Yi Xian asked, Invincible? Qing'er shook her head. Saying I'm invincible is underestimating me. Yi Xian was speechless. Suddenly, Xiaota asked, Sister Tianming, between you and Master, who is stronger? Yi Xian looked at Qing'er. In fact, he also wanted to know the answer. Qing'er, Dad and Big Brother. Who is stronger? Qing'er's expression was calm. You will know the answer when I become invincible. Yi Xian was silent. He knew that the 3 swords would fight one day. No one could stop it. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian asked again, Qingqiu used to be your original body. In other words, if both of you are willing, you can merge again, right? Qing'er nodded. Yes. Yi Xian looked at Qing'er. If you combine, will you become stronger? Qing'er smiled. Take a guess. Yi Xian was taken aback. Then he shook his head with a smile. Qing'er, you're naughty. Qing'er looked at Yi Xian. We don't need to combine. I alone can protect you for life. Yi Xian was silent for a moment. So, no matter in the current universe or the boundless universe, no one can threaten me. Am I right? Qing'er nodded. Yes. With me here, even if they join hands, they can't kill you. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. Qing'er said, "You won't die, but it doesn't mean you won't." At this point, she didn't say anything else. Yi Xian was curious. What? Qing'er was silent for a long time. You won't die, but it doesn't mean your story won't end. Like a book, the story will come to an end one day. She leaned her head on Yi Xian's shoulder. As long as I'm here, my brother's story will never end. If he dares, I'll finish him first. She glanced at a spot, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. If you dare to let the next person of destiny appear, I'll kill you as well. Someone was speechless. Yi Xian was about to speak when he sensed something. He turned and saw a man and a woman standing in the depths of the starry sky. The man wore golden armor and held a long spear in his hand. There was a murderous aura between his brows. The woman wore white armor and held a sheathed longsword in her hand. At this moment, both of them were looking at Yi Xian and Qing'er curiously. Seeing them looking at him, Yi Xian smiled as a greeting. Meanwhile, the man and woman suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The man gazed at Yi Xian. "Are you going to the Myriad Tomb's divine domain?" Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he smiled. "Yes." The man sized up Yi Xian and shook his head. "You're just at the High God realm. Not to mention the Myriad Tomb's divine domain, you can't even enter the river of death at the borders." Yi Xian smiled. "Are the two of you going to the Myriad Tomb's divine domain as well?" The man replied, "Yes." Yi Xian smiled. "We're just going to have a look." The man glanced at Yi Xian and remained silent. On the other hand, the white-armored woman's gaze was fixed on Qing. The white-armored woman had always been very confident, but when she saw Qing, she suddenly felt slightly ashamed of herself. Yi Xian paid no attention to them. He turned to look at Qing. "Let's go." Qing'er nodded. She preferred to be alone with Yi Xian. Apart from Yi Xian, she didn't like anyone else looking at her. After Yi Xian and Qing'er disappeared in the distance, the man next to the woman whispered, "The pen on that man's waist is the legendary Daoist." The woman nodded. "I saw it." The man's eyes flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. The woman saw through the man's intentions. Although this person's cultivation is low, he has Daoist. I'm afraid his background isn't simple. The man smiled. No matter how extraordinary he is, he's just at the High God realm. As he spoke, he opened his palm. In his hand, there was a small beast shaped like a mouse. At this moment, the little monster was looking in the direction Yi Xian left with a fanatical gaze. The man looked into the distance. The treasure-seeking mouse said that this person has many divine items, at least tens of billions of universe veins, and the legendary universe vein. Universe vein. Hearing this, the woman in white frowned. "Are you sure?" The man looked at the treasure-seeking mouse and smiled. "I'm sure. Very sure." After a moment of silence, the woman said, "But the more it is so, the more I feel that this person isn't simple, especially the woman next to him." The man asked, "That woman?" The woman nodded. "Yes." "This person?" The man suddenly shook his head and smiled. "That woman is soft and weak. Even if she is strong, how strong can she be?" With that, he smiled. "I've never seen the treasure-seeking mouse so excited and fanatical." The woman in white was still worried. The man continued, "This is the last one. The Daoist is yours. Divide the universe veins equally." After a moment of silence, the woman said, "Okay." In the next moment, the two disappeared. At the end of the distant starry sky, Yi Xian and Qing'er suddenly stopped. The man and the woman in white appeared in front of them. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Just as he was about to speak, the man suddenly disappeared and stabbed at Yi Xian with his spear. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. "What the hell?" At this moment, a sword suddenly pierced the man's forehead without any warning. Boom! The man was directly nailed to the ground. That sword was the walking sword. The man and the woman in white were completely dumbfounded. The man looked at Yi Xian and Qing'er in horror. "You? After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, "What are you doing?" The man suddenly said in horror, "I am from the Zhongshuan sect." Qing'er suddenly said calmly, "Where is the Zhongshuan sect?" point me in the direction. The man looked at Qing'er in horror. Who? At this moment, the Daoist suddenly said, right? Qing'er opened her palm, and the walking sword suddenly flew out. Tens of millions of miles to the right, in a certain world, a sword suddenly fell straight into an extremely powerful sect. Rumble. Before the experts in the sect could react, their bodies and souls were destroyed. The Zhongshuan sect no longer existed in this world. P.S. Thank all the readers for their gifts and support. After erupting, you need to recuperate for a period of time. 7017K. Chapter 24:13. In the starry sky, Qing'er opened her palm and the azure sword returned to her hand. The man stared at Qing'er in horror. You, what did you do? Qing'er looked straight at the man. Do you have a backer? If you do, point me in another direction. Yi Xian, the man seemed to realize something. He suddenly cried out in horror, You destroyed my Zhongshuan sect. Who are you? At this moment, he had already reached the pinnacle of shock. Qing'er flicked her sleeve. Boom. The man's spirit was destroyed. The white-armored woman trembled, cold sweat pouring down her back. Qing'er looked at the white-armored woman. The white-armored woman said in a trembling voice, Senior, suddenly asked, Where is your home? Yi Xian, the white-armored woman's face was pale. Senior, At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the distant horizon. Sir, please show mercy. We are from the Li clan. A sword suddenly streaked across the sky, and the voice came to an abrupt stop. Instant kill. Looked at the white-armored woman in front of her. Where is the Li clan? The white-armored woman's face was pale. She suddenly knelt in front of the plain-dressed woman and said in a trembling voice, Senior, shook her head. Don't think of yourself as pitiful. If the weak had met the two of you today, how could they have survived? Saying so, she waved her fingers. The white-armored woman's head flew into the air. Blood spurted out like a fountain. Qing'er opened her palm and clenched her right hand at the white-armored woman's head. In the next moment, the white-armored woman's memories were directly grasped by her. Qing'er suddenly pointed with her fingers. Go. The walking sword disappeared at the end of the starry sky. In an unknown world, a sword appeared in the sky above a city without any warning. Boom. Following the appearance of this sword, the entire city suddenly erupted into a frenzy. Countless people raised their heads to look at the sword, their eyes filled with fear and despair. Impudent! At this moment, a furious shout suddenly resounded from within the city. How dare you offend my Li clan? As his voice fell, a terrifying aura suddenly soared into the sky from the city. At this moment, the walk sword suddenly descended in a straight line. Boom! In an instant, the entire city was forcibly wiped out. The Li clan no longer existed in this world. In the starry space, the plain-dressed woman opened her right hand and the walking sword returned to her. She turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled. Let's go. Yi Xian nodded. All right. He opened his palm as he spoke, and 2 storage rings flew into his hand. They were none other than the storage rings of the man and woman in white armor. There were close to 3 billion universe veins in the 2 storage rings. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. He put away the storage ring and pulled Qing'er away. Not long after, the siblings arrived in front of a black river. This river stretched across the starry sky, and they couldn't see the end. The entire river was pitch black. Looking at the river, Yi Xian said softly, This should be the river of death that the man mentioned just now. Qing'er looked at the river of death with a calm expression. Yi Xian blinked. Qing'er, is there any danger in this river? Qing'er shook her head. Yi Xian smiled and was about to cross the river. At this moment, a terrifying aura spread out from the river. It spread out from the water. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically when he sensed this terrifying aura. At this moment, he actually smelled the aura of death. So strong. The owner of this aura definitely far exceeded End Realm. Yi Xian tightened his grip on Qing Er's hand and said softly, Qing, didn't you say that it wasn't dangerous? Er looked at the river and said, Is it dangerous? Yi Xian's expression froze. At this moment, a vicious-looking man slowly floated up from the river. His face was really ugly and he only had one eye. The rest of his face was covered in all sorts of poisonous pus, and it looked really disgusting. The man smiled and was about to speak when Qing Er suddenly said, You are so ugly, don't scare my brother. As she said this, she raised her hand and slashed. Pooh! The man was directly wiped out by that sword. It ended right after he appeared. Yi Xian, right at this moment, the river suddenly trembled. In the next moment, an illusory figure slowly floated up from the bottom of the river. The illusory figure gradually solidified. It was a man, and this man looked extremely ugly. His entire body was rotten, and there was pus flowing out of it. It was extremely disgusting. The man said viciously, Who are you? You actually dare? Er suddenly frowned, Ugly. As she said this, she raised her hand and slashed. Punk. The man who just appeared vanished without a trace, and it was as if he'd never been there. Qing turned to look at Yi Xian, and she grinned. Big brother is still the best looking. Yi Xian. Suddenly, the bottom of the river surged once more, and it didn't take long for a woman to float up slowly. Er looked at the woman, and the walk sword in her hand had started to tremble. However, this time, Qing Er didn't directly kill her, because that woman's appearance was not bad, with delicate features. The woman looked at Qing Er with fear in her eyes. You are? Qing Er's expression was calm, and she didn't answer. Yi Xian suddenly said, We just want to cross the river. The woman looked at Yi Xian, sized Yi Xian up, and then asked, Young master, what's your name? Yi Xian smiled, Yi Xian. The woman hesitated for a moment, and then she said, Young master Yi, this is the river of death, and we'll arrive at the myriad tombs' divine domain once we cross it. We made an agreement with the people there that no one is allowed to cross, so, hiss. Suddenly, a sword was pressed against the center of the woman's forehead. The woman's figure stiffened. Qing gazed at the woman. Say that again. The woman hurriedly spoke in a trembling voice. Cross. You can cross. The two of you can cross. Yi Xian was speechless. Qing nodded slightly, and then she took Yi Xian's hand and walked towards the distance. When they arrived in front of the river, the water actually parted on its own, and Yi Xian could sense that the water seemed to be afraid of them. The river has a spirit. However, Yi Xian didn't think too much about it. After Yi Xian and Qing left, the woman in the river instantly heaved a sigh of relief, and her entire body seemed like a pile of mud as she lay limply in the river. At this moment, her eyes were filled with disbelief. She hadn't imagined that someone could actually be so strong. After all, her strength could be considered to be at the top here, but she actually hadn't been able to fight back at all when facing that woman. She had a feeling that in front of that woman, she was less than an ant. A long time passed before the woman shook her head. How terrifying! As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished into the river. Only a single ripple remained on the surface of the river. Yi Xian and Qing walked into the distance, and before long, they arrived at a mountain range. As soon as they entered the mountain range, Yi Xian frowned. He looked around and felt a bone-chilling cold wind blowing around him. Yi Xian looked into the distance again. Not far away, there was a small village. In front of the village was a crooked tree, and on the tree sat a black three-eyed cat. At this moment, the cat was staring at him. Yi Xian glanced at the village, and the entire area was filled with yin qi. There was no one around, and it looked extremely cold and eerie. Yi Xian turned to look at Qing. Qing, don't you think it's strange? Qing Er's expression was calm. No. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. You don't think it's dangerous either, do you? Qing nodded. It's not dangerous. Yi Xian nodded. He held Qing Er's hand and walked toward the village. If he was alone, he would be a little afraid. Although he was strong now, he wasn't invincible. Especially when he had the rule that he couldn't stay cool for more than 3 days. But now, did he need to panic? Holding Qing Er's hand, I have the universe. What's there to be afraid of? He was fearless. At the entrance of the village, the three-eyed cat suddenly glanced at Qing Er, and Qing Er turned around to glance at it. The three-eyed cat's pupils constricted when Qing Er's gaze fell upon it, and then it fell from the tree. After that, it fled madly towards the distance. Yi Xian looked at Qing. What's wrong with the cat? Qing Er's expression was calm. I'm afraid it's hungry. It's going to find something to eat. Yi Xian was speechless. As they entered the village, a mournful melody came from the side. Hearing this voice, Yi Xian frowned slightly. He turned his head and looked into the distance. Next to a house not far away, an old man was lying on a chair and playing an eru. The more he played, the sadder it became. Yi Xian sized up the old man. The old man was wearing a simple linen robe, and there was a puppy lying next to him. The old man stopped abruptly. He looked at Yi Xian and chuckled. Interesting. Interesting. Yi Xian smiled. What do you mean by interesting, senior? The old man smiled. It's been so many years, but this is the first time someone has crossed the river of death and reached here. Kid, you have some skills. Yi Xian was silent. Can't these people sense Qing Er's presence? Or could it be that Qing Er didn't look like an expert? Yi Xian turned to look at Qing. Seeing Yi Xian's gaze, Qing Er smiled gently. Yi Xian was silent. To be honest, this gentle Qing Er doesn't look like a master. The old man suddenly stood up. He walked slowly to Yi Xian and Qing. He sized up Yi Xian and chuckled mockingly. The ignorant are fearless. Do you know what this place is? Yi Xian answered in a low voice. The Myriad Tombs realm. The old man looked at Yi Xian. Daoist. You actually brought Daoist with you. Interesting. He looked at Qing. Suddenly said, What are you looking at? The old man was surprised at first, but then he smiled. Everyone loves beauty. Young lady, you're so beautiful. Isn't it normal for me to look at you? Not only do I have to look, but I have to look carefully. A sword suddenly pierced the old man's forehead and nailed him to a house in the distance. Looked at the old man. Do you think you're funny? The old man, you're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.